Ladies and gentlemen, we welcome you to episode number 73 of the Primetime Rundown right here on the Eastern Observer. Our show is presented to you by Black Cats NYC alongside my guys Ian Schraier, Rob DeLuca. I'm Joey Jarzynka. Mike Szabo is our fourth rotational host on the show tonight. Ladies and gentlemen, our show is presented to you by Black Cats NYC. Be sure to download their newest album, Free Cake, out now. Play loud. Listen on Apple Music, Deezer, YouTube, SoundCloud, Amazon Music, YouTube Music, Pandora, and Spotify. Ian Schraier, good to see you, sir. How are things going on your side of Long Island?
You know, my week was going pretty well until I heard that Mike Szabo had never had Chipotle before, and then my week went right in the dumpster, man. Along with any other result that the New York Football Giants find a way to put up week after week. But hopefully that'll change before our next show, because I'm hoping by then Mike will have had Chipotle by then.
I'll tell you something. I know that because I'm a Qdoba guy. Mike will be having Qdoba next time that it is served in the St. John's press room, and I know that Rob DeLuca. I don't know, DeLuca, how your week was, but I can tell you it did not include Qdoba, and it must have been a pretty bad week, to say the least.
You know what? It's been a while since I've been on here. When was the last time I was on this show?
About a month ago.
About a month ago now, right? You know, it feels good.
Yeah.
It's great. It's great to be back. I know I am, and you know what? I was in Atlanta this past week. It was a beautiful city, great time, but it's always a better time to be right back here where I belong, with a great show up ahead. Mike Szabo joining us. He knows Chipotle is superior to Qdoba, just like every other human being. But nonetheless, we digress, and we've got a loaded show up ahead.
Not only do we have a loaded show, Mike Szabo, happy Movember, first off. You've got...
He rocks the beard on a normal day.
I was going to say, right. You rock the beard.
But he also makes it look good in comparison to the rest of us here. So
exactly, that is true. And you know what? And I have to tell you, Mike, you look phenomenal today. How is your week? That really is the next question for you.
Same old. It's that time where I want to slam college through the window and just get over it with, and get to mid-December already. It's that period of time.
Don't grow up, okay? Don't be in such a rush to become.
I know that.
Not that exciting.
Ladies and
it's that time of year. I just want some college basketball already to get me away from all these papers, for Christ's sake. But that's the time of year it is.
The crazy part is that we are 4 days away until the college basketball season, but we've got a solid show up ahead, ladies and gentlemen. First, we're going to start off with the NFL. Then we're going to go to a full recap of the World Series, as well as Nick Castellanos opting out. Then we're going to be previewing the Big East Conference this entire season. Of course, we will be covering them at the Eastern Observer. We always cover St. John's Red Storm as well as the Seton Hall Pirates, so we will be going through the entire conference as a whole and getting all of our takes regarding this conference. And of course, last but not least, we will be talking about the Jack Eichel trade that shook up a little bit of the league and could possibly result in some cap issues for
Joey's favorite conversation.
Golden Knights. And of course,
when does it ever not?
Say it again.
When does it ever not in hockey something result in cap issues?
That's right. And especially I'd like to thank Rob DeLuca, because he is the one that made this week's schedule. So a phenomenal job by him saving the best for last.
I tried to base it on what was really relevant at the time. So
I'll tell you, and you know what? It's very funny because I know Ian knows exactly where I'm going to go first with this. And you talk about relevancy, and relevancy first comes with Thursday Night Football. And of course, Rob DeLuca's favorite topic is Thursday Night Football. And as you can see in that graphic, Rob DeLuca's not too happy with himself there. He really cannot stand it. And of course, he's trying to take it down. He's not able to take it down because we've got control over this as well. So, Rob DeLuca, let's start off with you with our Thursday Night Football special, DeLuca's special, of course. And what did you get to witness yesterday? All I got to see was Carson Wentz ball out yesterday against the New York Jets.
I witnessed Everybody Loves Raymond, the beautiful television show that it is. Just pure entertainment for the whole family. I did not watch this catastrophe of a football game that the Jets tried to make interesting at the end of the game when the Colts stopped trying. But the good news is we got scoregami from it. That's what matters the most. It was 45-30. So it's the first time in the NFL history that that's ever been a score. So that's a beautiful, beautiful thing. But nonetheless, it was 42-10 at one point. That's when the game should have gone off of everyone's TVs. Who wants to watch Mike White? Oh, no, Mike White got injured, actually. Who wants to watch Josh Johnson screw up drive after drive and not bring the Jets anywhere? And also, my question was, where's Joe Flacco? Did the Jets not just re-get Joe Flacco? Why is he not dressing and playing in these games with Zach Wilson out to an injury? This doesn't make sense. Why did the Eagles burn away Joe Flacco if the Jets aren't even going to use him? These are the questions that we are not getting answers to. And honestly, I can't really, again, like I said, I truly did not watch this football game, so there's not much I could contribute to, and that's where I'll leave it.
Well, okay. Well, in that point, let's go to Ian Schraier here. And Ian, you got to see yesterday, I mean, a New York Jets team that was battling at the end. Carson Wentz, as well as the entire Indianapolis Colts team, moved to 4-5 on the season. They're in the driver's seat right now. And I will say this, in the driver's seat in the AFC South. And even though that they're only 2.5 games back, obviously, with the Titans playing on Sunday, there is a good chance that this Colts team could potentially revive themselves down the stretch.
I don't know what to make more of the first 2 points. Joey talking about the Colts reviving themselves as a good team just because Carson Wentz is their quarterback, or Rob trying to figure out a way as to why Joe Flacco wasn't put in the game. I don't know what point is worse to really address.
This is why talking about Thursday Night Football is stupid.
I guess
that's exactly what we all think, folks. That's exactly what we think. Rob DeLuca, ladies and gentlemen.
And to the copyright infringement that shows in that logo there. But nevertheless, I think what everybody was trying to make out of this Thursday night game was what was the future Joe Namath, the next great quarterback in New York Jets history, Mike White, after his performance on Sunday against the Cincinnati Bengals. And working at Adelphi, one of my student athletes who works for us in the office could not stop talking to me about how the Jets no longer needed Zach Wilson, and Mike White was the great savior that was going to revive the franchise of 60 years up until.
Well, Ian, let's not forget here, Mike White is now forever in the Hall of Fame until some quarterback in his first start throws 39 completions. So Mike White is now forever in the Hall of Fame.
I mean, they had the one and only Josh Johnson, formerly of the Brooklyn Bolts of the Fall Experimental Football League. How many of us actually remember that starting the he didn't start, but came in second, third drive after White got hurt. But look, Carson Wentz threw for 3 touchdowns. Jonathan Taylor had another breakout game. He's turning into one of the top 5, arguably top 10 running backs in the league right now. And the Jets have, again, I'll go back to our friend Brian Morales, who I'm going to see tomorrow, say to us that the Jets defense was arguably very suspect. And I said that defense was really a really just a bunch of walking hot trash. And I think we saw with them giving up 45 points yesterday, there really isn't much else to make of that game.
Mike Zabo, what did you get to see last night, even though aside from the St. John's women's soccer upset, which we'll get to a little bit later, what did you see last night in this abysmal contest that, is DeLuca's favorite night of the week to watch in the fall?
Well, I mean, just starting off with the abysmal contest, the fact of the schedule makers putting this matchup. Last week we had the Packers and the Cardinals, which was a really good matchup and whatnot. That's at least an acceptable game for Thursday night football. This was just absolute garbage. I don't care how the game would have wound up, whether it was 45-10 or 23-20. It was just a horrible matchup to have on the card, just to start off with. With the whole thing with Mike White, just when it seemed like the Jets might find lightning in a bottle, backup quarterback coming in for Zach Wilson, has a great game last week. Oh, you got a great story with him and whatnot. Of course, it's the most Jets thing to happen that he goes down with an injury. The biggest thing that stood out to me is the run defense. This was a team last year. I mean, listen, we know how bad the Jets are, but last year their strength was their run defense, and that has completely gone away this year. like Ian said, Jonathan Taylor just continues to ascend. Please, if anybody in my fantasy football league is listening to this, I have an offer to try and get Jonathan Taylor from you. Please, I want to trade for him. That just shows my opinion of him. The biggest thing also, too, on the Colts side is that you got to see a clean game from Carson Wentz. You saw the worst of the worst last week with arguably the worst play in NFL history, as it's called, with Carson Wentz trying to be superhero, in the end zone, trying to do some kind of throw. And, of course, it went horrible. This week he wound up having a really clean game, did really well, again, against a bad team, but nonetheless, that's what you wanted to see if you were an Indianapolis Colts fan. The Jets, I mean, again, I think Rob's point is big too. I don't know where, not like Joe Flacco was going to make a difference, but you traded a 6th-round pick for him. Not like a 6th-round pick is, like crazy compensation, but what was the point of the trade then? If not to, have
maybe Saleh saw something that he liked. Maybe Saleh saw something that he liked, Mike, in practice. I mean, I think at this point, if you're the Jets, your future is the stake of your future is in Zach Wilson, and I think they have to decide. I don't think they intend to go into the 2022 season with Joe Flacco as their backup quarterback. I think they want to see what they have in a couple of these backups in the case where Zach Wilson does go down, and I think Jet fans got excited. I mean, listen, this is a team that's searching and begging for a franchise quarterback. I mean, how many quarterbacks have they drafted in the last 20 years just to try to find the one guy? We all thought Sanchez was it for a couple of years, when Rex Ryan was the head coach and they went to the 2 AFC championship games. But I think they just wanted to see what they have there, and for fans to be blowing up over this. I mean, I know Jet fans need some sort of hope to latch themselves onto to try to start winning games. And I think they saw Mike White as this guy to be like, wow. I mean, they beat the Bengals. I mean, the Bengals are a playoff team right now. But I mean, like you said, Mike, I think it's the most Jets thing ever for the one guy who shows you a glimmer of hope for the season goes down with some sort of wrist injury in the first quarter.
Yeah, it's really wild to see what happened yesterday, especially with Mike White following his I can't believe we're saying this, but Hall of Fame performance in a upset against the Cincinnati Bengals, which took out a week of DeLuca and Ian's picks too. But you don't want me. You don't want me to just pull it. You don't want me to just pull it up right now. We might as well just pull it up right now. Like, here you go. Like, yeah, here's how we did. We all stunk.
Awful mess.
We all stunk except for Joey.
The Jets twice this year. The Jets have been nothing this year except for 2 weeks out of the year. They absolutely destroyed survivor pools. That's just the one thing that they have this year, that they absolutely destroyed people's survivor pools. It's a crime.
And absolutely, Mike's right. And you know what? As we saw there, everybody stunk except for Joey and our beloved Casey Bryant. So it's just ridiculous that everybody took a huge hit this week. So the standings, we're still getting our butts kicked by a bunch of guys who talk about wrestling by about 8 games. That really didn't change much. But you know what? The thing about that is they took a lot of the easy games. So that there's really going to be chances for us as the Primetime Rundown division to come back and really dig into this lead and eventually win the trophy that we're obviously playing for.
Well, looking at some of the statistics, Josh Johnson, 27 for 41, 317 yards, 3 touchdowns. Obviously, the final couple were obviously garbage touchdowns. Carson Wentz, 22 for 30, 272 total yards, 3 touchdowns, 134.3 QBR rating. Not bad there. And Jonathan Taylor, of course, as you brought up, Mike, earlier, continues to ascend. 19 carries, 172 yards, 2 touchdowns, and averaged 9.1 yards per carry. And, of course, continuing on and doing such an amazing job, Michael Pittman Jr., really good stuff again with him. 5 receptions, 1 touchdown, 6 total targets, averaged 13 yards per catch.
And Joey, I wouldn't just get too excited about Carson Wentz again yet. I mean, I know he had those couple of games, even when I was praising him at a touchdown to interception ratio, I think it was at one point of 7-1. But his last week or two leading into the Jets game was starting to fall back a little bit. And I'm not going to put granted, it might do wonders for his confidence, but the Jets arguably have the worst defensive backfield in the NFL. So
there's no doubt.
Yeah, I don't know if I'm, look, like Mike said, it's great to see Carson Wentz with a clean game. Let's see with a long week off. Let's see if he can kind of carry that confidence into next week.
I could tell you something too, as an Eagles fan. Also, I could tell you this is that listening to some of the Indianapolis Colts media calling for the Carson Wentz benching so they do not give up a first-round draft pick is absolute blasphemy. But it's actually hilarious.
You know what, Joey? Now you know how it would feel for someone to tank your chances at something. Now you know how it would feel.
Oh, is it now? I still see some salt from week 17 I see in Rob DeLuca. Okay.
I'm just saying, you'll know how it feels.
That is true. And you know what will be great also? When you don't get Deshaun Jackson on your team.
Deshaun Jackson on our team?
Who actually wants
DeLuca said he wants him.
Who actually wants Odell Beckham?
Oh,
everybody wants Odell Beckham until they had him. I think I made a good segue, Joey. Let's get into it.
Ladies and gentlemen, Odell Beckham Jr. this morning was officially put on waivers and cut by the Cleveland Browns. Guys, who is going to pick him up? Is anyone going to put a waiver claim in for him? Or will he just slide all the way down the remainder of the 31 teams? And will he be a free agent? Start off with Ian Schraier.
It's tough. I know the team that I think everybody's thinking he's going to go to now is Vegas, is the Raiders. I think the Raiders have to be an early favorite for Odell, considering everything with Henry Ruggs. And the fact that the Raiders are contending, are leading that division, as scary as that sounds, with the Chargers and starting to underperform of late, and the Chiefs, who have been underperforming all season because their offensive line is in shambles. I'm going to go with the Cincinnati Bengals as a possibility. I think this is a team right now with Jamar Chase, who's really establishing himself early on as a Rookie of the Year candidate. Joe Burrow has really looked composed. I guess aside from this past Sunday against the Jets, this is a team that needs a little more in terms of skill players, could use another one. And I think having Odell there, listen, we have not seen anything from Odell to prove that he can't win without Eli. So I think Cincinnati would be an interesting spot for him. He wouldn't have too far to go. He'd be playing in the same division. It's a division right now that's very much up for grabs. The Bengals are very much in the playoff discussion. So I think I'm going to say Cincinnati. I know there's some other teams out there right now that are far more of a contender, but I'm going to say maybe the Bengals might be an interesting play.
Well, right now we look at some of even the top 10 teams as well that have obviously first rights to him. The Lions, the Dolphins, the Eagles, the Giants, the list goes on there. Mike Zabo, where do you see him potentially going? Do you say Cincinnati, Vegas, or potentially someplace else?
I think I don't know if this will be my prediction, but I think where he should go, or who should be going after him, especially, is the Green Bay Packers. I mean, how many years we've been saying that they need a number 2 wide receiver behind Devontae Adams. Randall Cobb doesn't cut it. Allen Lazard or Marquez Valdez-Scantling doesn't cut it. We've been saying this for years. The Packers sat around at the trade deadline. Honestly, us around the Giants fandom all thought that we were going to trade Evan Ingram there and give them a tight end, especially with Robert Tonyan going down. They need another skill player. If they're a good team, the Packers, they'll probably be they're going to be in the playoffs. You can make the argument they'll make another run, maybe to the NFC Championship game. You never know, but I don't think they have enough to be able to go where they want to go once again this year. So I think that's another place for him to go. On the Bengals thing, I mean, listen, with Odell, this whole situation is happening because he is a bit of a head case. Are we really saying with his ego that he's really going to go to a place like Cincinnati?
No, I don't think so.
I mean, I think it's just it's a team that I'm suggesting Cincinnati outside.
I like it in terms of on the field, but
I mean,
his ego and everything.
When you're looking at, I mean, if you want to talk about a team, like if you want to talk about a real prediction for a team that's early on in the waiver wire that I think could end up with them, the New York Jets. Robert Saleh I mean, look, I think the Dolphins are shot. The Lions don't need a player like that there. I mean, even though I think him and Dan Campbell would probably butt heads a whole lot with his attitude. I think the Jets make a lot of sense because the Jets have just have notoriety of going after guys and signing guys. They're going to raise ticket sales. And you're going to tell me with I don't know if they would re-sign him, but just a guy to put in out there that could just wow you on the field with what he is capable of doing when healthy and performing at his highest level, because we've seen it at MetLife Stadium. So I think, and the Jets, believe it or not, when you go back to the year that he was drafted, when you go back to the 2014 NFL draft, the Jets were not far behind the Giants when the Giants drafted Odell, and the Jets wanted Odell Beckham Jr. I'm not sure many people realize that he was very high on their draft list. And I think he fits in well with the type of coach Robert Saleh is and the type of organization that the Jets are, because they have no shame about going after guys that potentially are locker room issues or head cases, like Tim Tebow, like Brett Favre. I mean, so this isn't a far cry when Woody Johnson is your owner. So I think if you want to talk about a team that, if you're talking about early and, high up in the waiver wire based on your record, and a team that just might want to take a splash at them, why not the Jets?
Well, I'm going to go to Rob DeLuca because I actually just saw a couple of little issues that could go along with this Odell Beckham waiver claim if someone does do it. DeLuca, who do you see?
Here's why I think Ian's not as far-fetched as people think with the Jets and also the Giants. Odell's a whiny little baby that wants the spotlight. What bigger market are you going to get than New York City? So and Ian said the two magic words: ticket sales, especially for two horrible football teams in New York. Odell Beckham Jr. would put butts in seats regardless of how bad these two teams are. So that's why I think Ian is not as far-fetched as we all think. So I think it's very possible that he could be a Jet. I think it's possible that the New York Giants, Dave Gettleman, goes back on all of his words and just picks him up again. But
I don't see it,
but thinking about it, I'm gonna go to someone who actually has a real chance to get him down the waiver wire. I think Miami would be an interesting market for Odell because, like I said, he loves the spotlight. Miami's a pretty decent market for football. And you know what? I think it's someone Tua could work with very well. So that him and Jalen Waddle could be kind of a 1-2 punch that Tua might be able to work with. But also, does this not reek of something of a project Bill Belichick would pick up? I feel like this reeks of something Bill Belichick would just do to somehow revive this man's career.
Josh Gordon type.
Right, exactly. And
Antonio Brown over there.
And New England's a huge spotlight place. So you know what? This thing reeks of Bill Belichick. I would not even be remotely surprised if Odell is to fall all the way to 15, I believe, which is where the New England Patriots sit. I wouldn't even be remotely surprised.
Well, I think the big thing here is that Adam Schefter tweeted out something earlier and brought up about how if he does get picked up by somebody, it will inherit, or that team will inherit, a $7.5 million cap hit for the remainder of the season. Now, there's not many teams that are able to do that this upcoming season or this season now. And basically, the teams that he tweeted out that have $7.25 million in cap space are the aforementioned Jaguars, Eagles, Broncos, Seahawks, Panthers, Chargers, Steelers, Washington, and Cincinnati. So the team that sticks out to me here in this entire thing here, and just to go off of what we were talking about with ticket sales and whatnot, are the Los Angeles Chargers. This is a team that has been struggling since their move from San Diego to LA. And what better way to kind of continue to have a winning team go even further? But then again, you say to yourself, well, he brings a lot of toxicity into a winning locker room. Do you want to do that if you are Dean Spano and Brandon Staley and the entire Chargers organization? I say no. The other team that I could see potentially getting or putting in a waiver or even signing him on a free agent deal, if he were to clear, which is, I believe, that is my prediction, he will clear because of that cap issue, I think, are the Carolina Panthers. Why? Because they need a little bit of bump in something. DJ Moore isn't doing it. Robbie Anderson isn't doing it. And I don't know, maybe if it's the if it's the wide receivers that there's a problem. I don't think there is. I think it's all Sam Darnold, and I think what's going on the side of the ball. But I could see definitely another weapon in there for Sam Darnold to maybe get himself kick-started again, where, again, they started off 3-0. Now they've lost, or rather, they have lost 3 out of their last 4. I think they're 4-4 now, if I'm not mistaken. I think they won last week, so they're 4-4. But they lost 4 straight. So things obviously have not been going well down in the Carolinas. I could see them getting him once he clears through waivers. I don't think anyone picks him up. That's just me.
I think with the Chargers, go ahead, Mike.
I think either way, it's not as simple as we're all talking about on the field. This is a very, very high risk, high reward move. We've seen basically the trade to the Browns never really worked out, whether that was because of injury or the time where he actually played, he was just ineffective, whether, it was because he thought Baker Mayfield didn't want to throw him the ball or whatnot. The Browns had better numbers without Odell than with him. So for a multitude of reasons, it didn't work out. And, you have the problems of his behavior. You have that issue, but the thing is, can you be able to get him right and be able to get him back to being what the Giants had a couple of years ago and being a perennial 1,000-yard wide receiver? And I don't know if I think injury hampers that, even if he does, get his head in the game and in the right space. He's been injury prone these last couple of years as well. I've heard a friend too. I was talking about it in the radio station, Joey. They're saying, I don't know if this guy ever has 1,000-yard season ever again in his career.
No.
It's a sad situation, but I think it's just for any team, whether he clears waivers or not, is it a cap issue, a cap hit or whatnot, is extremely high risk, high reward.
Yeah, and go ahead.
And it's tough to see him, even though you keep mentioning about him going to like a big market. I think it's tough to see a team that wants to take on that type of player, especially if, and I know it doesn't add up when you think of somebody with Odell's talent potentially not going to a team that could, make a run to a Super Bowl because of what he's been capable of doing on the field. I think that you're going to see teams that have a little less of a market maybe try to make a run at him, where there's going to be a little less spotlight. Maybe that's not where Odell wants to go, but I think that's why I thought a name like Cincinnati kind of jumped out. I thought they're a team that's in the hunt. They're well in the hunt in the division, well in the hunt in the wild card race, and I think that it would be an interesting landing spot for him. But I think if I just don't know, like would Dallas consider it with Gallup? And I mean, you want to talk about a team that has wow factor, and you want to talk about a team that's like, what market does he belong in? I mean, could you think of one more than Dallas where he would, like him and CD and Amari? I mean, you'd have a heck of a wide receiver room. But I think I agree with you 100%. But I think his ego, I think the way he acts in the locker room is going to be a telltale sign for teams to really try to stay away that are in the hunt. Because you mentioned, Joey, Carolina, you mentioned the Chargers. I don't know if I'm the Chargers, I would do something like that. I think they're young, they're rising a little bit. Same thing for Carolina. Carolina's issue is they can't stay healthy. Christian McCaffrey can never seem to stay on the field. DJ Moore had a hot start this season. Yeah, he's cooled off. Robbie Anderson had a hot start season. He's cooled off because Sam hasn't been able to connect the way he was the first few games of the season. So I don't know, if he lands anywhere, I think he should get picked up. But I think I wouldn't be surprised, to Rob's point, if Bill Belichick decided to pick him up out of the weeds and made a run towards the playoffs. I think that'd be interesting.
And also, let's keep in mind, too, a total of about $6.8 million in cap space is what New England has. So if he were to pick him up, it would be post waivers. That would not be, he would not be able to inherit that cap hit
unless they restructure in some way before signing.
They'd figure, knowing Bill, he would literally figure out how to restructure it, and it would be fine, and everything's dandy. New England ends up in the playoffs. We're all miserable. The end.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, let's keep on moving here, and let's continue to talk about movement within the NFL. Von Miller was traded to the Los Angeles Rams for 2 second-round picks from Denver. And you know what? And even though Rob DeLuca said kind of old, keep it brief, I will not. And I'll tell you why. Because Von Miller is one of the faces of Denver. And we have to realize also, regardless of it being old, keep it brief, this team is on its way to another Super Bowl in nearly 3 seasons. That's a big deal. Ian Schraier.
I mean, is there a team that you see just at this point? I think Arizona's even starting to cool off a little bit too. Is there a team that can even contend with them at this point in the NFC West? I don't.
And it can't even be the Tampa Bay Bucks in the South.
No, I mean, you want to talk about the Bucks? Let's talk about their result again. Another regular season loss to the Saints last weekend. But I think the Rams are just they've got to be the class right now of the NFC. I mean. You know what's scary to me? And I posted this on Twitter, I believe it was a couple of weeks ago. And even as a Giants fan, I'm like nauseous even thinking it. Is the fact that if Dak Prescott's healthy, and I know we're kind of switching topics here, I think arguably the Dallas Cowboys are probably the second best team in the NFC. That it's really scary. And I posted it a couple of weeks ago on Twitter. I said, this is probably the first time I could think of, probably since the Dez year in Green Bay, that the Cowboys actually have the guys on the field to get there. I think they're legitimately that good. But
no, first of all, Dez didn't catch it. Second of all, no, they don't. But please go on.
Listen. I have to try to speak unbiased here, Rob. I have to try. I mean, look, we want to sit here and talk. Let's look at the rest of the NFC. Aaron Rodgers. When is he coming back? I mean, listen, Tom Brady just finds a way to amp it up to another level in the playoffs. But I think that the Cowboys, if they have that home field, are a very interesting, potential number 2, number 3 seed. I'm curious to get Joey's thoughts on it but we'll get back to that. But to Joey's point in regards to Von Miller, I mean, Aaron Donald, Von Miller. I mean, who else do you want to add in that defense?
Jalen
Ramsey. I think they're just. They're a pretty unbeatable team. They're not unbeatable, but they're a pretty unbeatable team. Stafford is he's found the right place for him. He's got the weapons around him, even after losing Cam Akers in the running game. Darrell Henderson has really found his way. I don't really have too much else to say about the Rams because they're as good as. To quote the late Dennis Green, we are who we thought they are, who we thought they were. Like they're good, and I think this just really. And I think what the Rams posted on Twitter was the scene from Rounders. For anyone that's seen that movie, that shows Teddy KGB putting all the chips in. And one of my friends retweeted it saying, does anybody realize what happens in that scene? He loses. So I thought that was kind of interesting. But at the same time, I thought that was a really, really good analogy for what the Rams are trying to do here. Clearly, they're going for the Super Bowl. We knew that when they got Stafford, but add Von Miller to that, and that's even more of a reason.
Well, and the reason why I wanted to bring this up, and there was no disrespect, toward Rob DeLuca here, but the biggest thing here, and for all of those that know me very well, is the cap issue. And I think the big thing here was that originally you got to hear, well, let's keep in mind they're going to be the Rams are going to be inheriting $7.9 million because he was making, I believe, $7.9 or $8 million this season. Well, the best part is that the Broncos paid $7 million for him to get shipped out, and all the Rams are paying is a whopping $900,000 for this. It just seems to me that the Rams and Les Snead just continue to make deals work so well. And I don't know what they do, how they do it with a lot of teams, because when they made it to the Super Bowl and when they signed Todd Gurley, they signed Jared Goff to this big deal. They re-signed Aaron Donald to this big deal. Where was all of this money coming from? And also just a few years down the road, which was last year, this team was nearly $40 million over the cap, and just somehow they were able to restructure it. Kudos to Les Snead for continuing to really be an absolute math whiz, as well as keeping his job intact out in the City of Angels. Mike Szabo, I want to go to you because DeLuca, I think we'll get to DeLuca at the end. Go ahead.
So I think with this Von Miller move, the best defense in the NFL just got even better. That's basically what it is. This was already a juggernaut of a defense that just got one of the best pass rushers in the last decade. I mean, yes, he is aging, but he's still a good veteran presence. He knows what he's doing over there.
Great locker room guy.
Yeah, I mean, he's really good. I just admire the Rams like wanting to go for it. I know everybody talks about, they gave up 2 picks, now they have nothing till like 2027 or whatnot. So what? There's most of the guys that they have. You talk about their core pieces, they're going to be around for a while, so they're going to be a decent team, and that'll set up by the time the picks start rolling back in again. So you have this core, you have this window, you might as well go for it. So I admire that from them. Why hold the picks? The picks really don't help you as much. So it's a great move for them. And again, like you guys are right. I think a couple of teams are cooling off. The J.J. Watt injury really hurts Arizona.
Oh, yeah. And especially, I'm sorry, Zabo, hurts them in the locker room as well. You brought up locker room as well.
Yeah. The Packers and the drama with Aaron Rodgers, forget about the time that he'll miss, just the drama surrounding that as well. The age-old question is, can Tom Brady find it once again in the playoffs, even when the Bucs are, up and down in the regular season? You say never bet against Tom Brady in the playoffs. We'll see if that rings true. But the Rams just keep on rising up to the top of the class. They've just been consistent this year when everybody's kind of up and down. The one thing I do have a concern about them is injury. And if you've been reading all the injury reports, remember the biggest thing that's been plaguing Matt Stafford the last couple of years in Detroit, that bothersome back of his is coming back up once again, and he is questionable for this week with the back injury. We saw how much that plagued him the last couple of years in Detroit. That could really hurt the Rams, as they go into the stretch of the season, is if Stafford is not totally healthy.
So one quick thing before we get to Rob DeLuca, because and we were going to say it, I was trying to get the words out. He does a great segue into the next topic. To touch on Ian Schreier's point with the Dallas Cowboys as well, just to finish what I know he wanted me to finish, is that I do not believe Dallas is number 2 in the NFC. I still think it's Tampa Bay. They are getting reinforcements back. They are getting Sean Murphy Bunting back. They are getting Carlton Davis back. Richard Sherman along. They're getting these players back. They're getting another guy like Scotty Miller back, Rob Gronkowski. The list goes on, and they are getting healthier and healthier as the weeks go on. And I think that this bye week for them in week 9 came at the best possible time, where they are just going to be rejuvenated, completely healthy all over again. And I just want to pull up also who they're going to be playing next week. If I'm not mistaken,
it's the Giants.
Yeah, it's the Giants, Ian. Whoever you are.
That I promise everybody out there that was not intentional. They're playing rather Washington. They're playing the Giants. They're playing Indianapolis, and they're playing Atlanta. There you go, 4-0 right there. And that's another reason why, too, that this team now, they're slowly getting healthier. Down the stretch, this team is going to be playing absolutely nobody. The only 2 teams that really are going to put some pressure on them, Buffalo and New Orleans. This team is officially number 2 in the NFC. Dallas, if I have to give a ranking, would you like me to give a ranking, Ian?
I would think 3, right?
I would say 3. That is where I was going. That's definitely
my point to you was I could see them as a 2. I'm not like locking them in, but I think they have the right players right guys in place finally. Dallas, I mean, listen, I know it hurts me, and I know it's absolutely ripping DeLuca's heart out to be saying it, but look, I mean, you really can't argue. For the first time in a long time, the Dallas Cowboys are actually healthy. Dak is healthy for now. Again, another draft pick the Giants didn't take. Micah Parsons has turned out to look pretty good for the Cowboys through 8 weeks. And I think that they're just hitting all the buttons at the right time. And I thought they were going to have a lot of problems defensively. I thought after the year that Zeke had last year, where the offensive line was in shambles, I was like, there's no way the Cowboys are going to be as good on the O-line. They're 6-1. I mean, I'm not trying to say that they haven't played anybody, but I think the fact that they're 6-1 says a lot about the Cowboys for this year. And I think that they've just got so many guys, so many weapons that they could hit you with in a lot of ways, like the Bucs can. I mean, you look at CD and you look at Gallup and you look at Cooper, Amari Cooper. If he stays healthy, he's obviously your number one. I mean, really, him and Lamb are your 1 and 1A. And then all of a sudden, you find this guy named Dalton Schultz, who's now like Jason Witten. So I think there's a lot to be said for Dallas, and I don't want to really undersell them because I think they could surprise teams. But I think when you look at the scheduling, yeah, I think it's hard to see how Brady and the Bucs, now that they're getting healthy, aren't number 2 to the Rams. But I think the Cowboys are going to give them every bit of run for their money because of how bad the division that they play in as well is, and B, how well they're performing offensively. I think it's really hard to slow them down right now.
So yeah, and you know what? And again, forget about Blake Jarwin, who was supposed to be the next man up following Jason Witten's departure to Las Vegas or to Las Vegas last year. He was supposed to be the next guy up. Dalton Schultz was really a guy that nobody knew. Nobody had a feeling he would even come in and take Jarwin's job. Now Jarwin is a blocking tight end who is actually out this weekend against the Broncos. You bring up also about the offensive line. Tyron Smith is out, and DeMarcus Lawrence, who is really the anchor of that defensive line, is out. He's going to continue to be out. He's on the injured reserve. We'll see when he comes back, and if and when he comes back, yes, then maybe you have a shot at saying that they are the number 3 team in the NFC. But as of right now, the number 2 team in the NFC. But as of right now, we'll see how he comes back. We'll see how he responds. And we'll also see how a lot of these injuries here, especially on that left tackle spot, Tyron Smith, we'll see what he could do against the Broncos, which really is not that much, especially now that they pretty much unloaded everybody on that defense. Rob DeLuca, let's go back to the Los Angeles Rams, to Von Miller quickly. They continue to make these moves. Les Snead still has a job. Final thought, and let's segue into the next thing here, because you are the master of segues.
Look, the Rams Look, Von Miller's not what he used to be. Everyone knows that. He's a little old now, but he's still very good. Look, it's obvious. He's still a very good football player. He's still one of the better linebackers in the league, but he's not the elite player he once was. But it's still a win for the Los Angeles Rams. They stack up their defense even further. It's clear they're making a Super Bowl run. And right now, there really is not a lot to say that says they won't be there. The only team right now that I think could remotely stop them is the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So we'll have to just wait and play this out. But overall, I like the trade for Von Miller. I believe I feel like he wants one more before he calls it quits. And this is arguably the best place for him to do it. And overall, I think Denver just probably they realize after a hot start that they're cooling off now. Now they're 4-4, and I think they're just kind of realizing things are not where we thought they were going to be, and it's time to start maybe looking a little more forward than week by week at this point. It's more like maybe looking into next year.
Well, but Denver didn't play anybody the first few weeks of the year.
Exactly. Either. So now that they played real teams, it shows they're kind of cooled off. So Send the guy that has meant everything to the Denver Broncos to a winner. That's exactly what they did. They got good stock out of it. They got 2 second-round picks. That's nothing to shake your head at in the NFL draft. That's some high quality talent right there with 2 second-round picks. So there's definitely gonna be some payoff there. So we'll just have to wait and see. And I say let's make our picks and move on to the next sport.
Okay, well, in that case, before we make our picks, we, of course, have to look at last week's. If you're just joining us, you have to look at some of the picks from last week.
Look at all that green, man. Look at all that.
There is some green. There's a lot of red, though, and we have to blame Mike Zabo. We have to blame Ian Schraier. We have to blame Rob DeLuca. And this week, for once, we do not have to blame Joey Jazz for this one. Thank you very much, Los Angeles Rams, for doing what you do. And we would have been a game up, but, of course, Larry Protakowicz decides to choose the Los Angeles Chargers against
Larry had to be weird
against Bill Belichick, and that one came in and completely exploded in his face. Well, ladies and gentlemen, now with that being said, let's make our Week 9 picks. Start off with Ian Schraier.
I was looking through the schedule, and I said to myself, you know what, this is the week I'm going to take Buffalo, right? They're playing Jacksonville. The Jags are just absolutely horrible, but there's a team still that I have not used, that I've been on the fence with using for a while now. And I'm going to use him now strictly because Aaron Rodgers is not playing, and that's the Kansas City Chiefs. I'm going to use KC this week. I was literally this close to going Buffalo, but I'm like, you know what? Let me hold on to Buffalo for another week or two when I could use them in a divisional game against like Miami or something like that, and kind of stash them. But I'm going to go with KC here. No Rodgers. Jordan Love, welcome to the NFL. If he proves me wrong, go on with your bad self. So I'll take Mahomes at home. I mean, granted, that offensive line is terrible, but they've got a terrible defense in Green Bay that they're going up against. So I'll take the Chiefs at home.
Well, Rob DeLuca, let's hear yours.
Yeah, it gets a little tougher when you hit when a lot of teams go on bye weeks, and then you obviously can't repeat teams. So you have to really look closely at the schedule. And, we're still down 8 games. We got to try to get these wins here. So you know what? I took what I thought was the easiest game of the week to pick. And that's why I'm going to go with the Baltimore Ravens at home over the Minnesota Vikings. I think that's Baltimore now fresh off their bye week, no less. So they'll be at home. They're fresh. They're ready to go. And I think that it'll be a nice route for the Baltimore Ravens to get back into this and take the W.
I disagree. I think that's such a trap game.
You said that about my pick 2 weeks ago, and I won anyway. So
it's such a trap game. Unbelievable.
You said my pick 2 weeks ago was a trap game, and I won. What do you want from me?
Screw us over.
Said the 2 people that took the Titans over the Jets.
Well, listen, I have to say this, and before we get to Mike Szabo's pick, Mike, I have to ask you, your week number 8 pick, you chose. Oh, first off, actually, you chose Atlanta. That was the first mistake. The second mistake was that Rob DeLuca did not. He said he was in the city of Atlanta, right?
He sure was.
He didn't go to the Falcons game, and he did not go and mortgage his house to go see Atlanta lose at Truist Park. DeLuca, why did you not go?
Because I didn't have $1,200 to stand for 9 minutes.
Well, shame on you. Make a withdrawal. What's the matter with you? Mike Szabo.
We don't have that much time.
Week number 9 pick, Mike.
So last week I went with a bit of a flyer. As we all know, at this time of the year, you got to try and manage and save some of the bigger teams for later on. That's sort of my strategy. That's the reason why Atlanta was in there. You thought with how bad Sam Darnold was and all, I thought I would be able to, pull a sneaky one there, but of course fell by 6 points. This week I'll take a more no-nonsense approach and just take the Bills over the Jaguars. Not messing around. I know I could save the Bills for divisional games, but I know there are a couple of trap games on this schedule this week that, scratch your head or whatnot, but not with the Bills and all. I'll just, make a relative what should be a safe pick this week.
Well, I can tell you this much. I chose Buffalo as well over Jacksonville. And the last time that any pick that I had to do with Jacksonville was week number 1 when they lost to Houston. And now I can tell you this much. Buffalo is not losing to Jacksonville. And if they do, Incarcerated Bob, please cut this clip and make sure that you put me on blast and give us 5,000.
That was so
viewers.
Amazing. I honestly hope you almost do lose just so that happens again. That was so great.
Come on, we need the trophy. We need to get back.
We do need to get back. We do need to get back, and you're out here picking the Falcons over the Panthers. You got Ian over here,
Because I can't pick the big teams all the time.
Last I checked, Rob, you and I have the exact same record.
Yeah, that's true. Last week was the first time I had lost in 6. Last week was the first time I had lost in 6 weeks. It was very unfortunate.
Well, it was probably because you didn't go to the Atlanta Falcons game.
Right? Yeah. Jinx the Bengals. That's what.
Come on, you can go to Mercedes-Benz Stadium. Get no Chick-fil-A because Chick-fil-A is not open.
Chick-fil-A is closed on Sundays.
That's right. The Buffalo Bills will not lose to the Jacksonville Jaguars. It's plain and simple, ladies and gentlemen. There is no ifs, ands, or buts. And if they do, that's really bad. And Buffalo, and listen, it doesn't matter where they're playing. They are playing in TIAA Bank Stadium down in Jacksonville. If Buffalo were to lose against Jacksonville, Buffalo has a lot of problems in the AFC because right now They are the class of the AFC. And if they can't get it done against Jacksonville, which, I mean, let's be honest here, they should be able to, then you know what? Then I should just be eliminated from this survivor pool and never, ever participate ever again. But
speak for yourself, not for me now, you know.
Let's move on to the next topic, ladies and gentlemen. We have been on football for pretty much for the first hour, and we cannot thank everyone for staying with us this entire time. Alongside my guys Ian Schraier, Rob DeLuca, Mike Zabo, I'm Joey Jarzynka. Let's continue rolling here. 10 minutes to the top of the hour. And of course, we got to see the Atlanta Braves obtain and earn their second World Series title since 1995, and also their second World Series title since moving from Boston. So an amazing feat to see the Atlanta Braves upset and shock the Houston Astros. Guys, there were so many people that chose the Astros in 5 and 6 and 7, whatever it was, and it was the Atlanta Braves in 6. Ian Schraier, how good was it to see?
Look, you would think that as a lifelong New York Mets fan, I was struggling with it, but I wasn't. I think there was a tweet from somebody who said, you know, who's a Met fan. I think it was Rich McLeod who said, hate to tell you this, guys, but the Braves are really a lot of fun to watch. And I agreed with him 110% with that statement. There's really not a lot to hate about the Atlanta Braves. The only thing I hated about the Atlanta Braves during the entire World Series was how much of a homer John Smoltz was on the broadcast. That bugged me.
You sound surprised.
Well, if you look at it from a perspective, right? John Smoltz has never called the Atlanta Braves in the World Series, right?
Yeah.
Last time the Braves were in the World Series in 1999 against the Yankees, he was on the field. So, I mean, he's never had the opportunity to. I mean,
it's like Aikman calling a Cowboys game.
He was sitting here. Rob, he was sitting there. I forgot which game it was. I want to say it was game 3 or whichever game it was. And it's a routine ground ball to Dansby Swanson. There was no horrible short hop that came up and ate him up. It was a routine play, and John Smoltz on the replay is sitting here telling Joe Buck how horrible of a hop it was. It was the most routine hop I've ever seen.
I remember the Dansby Swanson nightmare game.
Oh, it was so bad. I mean, horrible job by John Smoltz this weekend. At least Joe Buck made up for it. But with respect to the Braves, I'm happy for them. I think this is great for Atlanta. Aside from the fact they can never seem to pack out their home games when they're in the playoffs historically. Again, for the Braves, it's I don't know really what more to say. I mean, they lost Acuna, they lost Soroka. Obviously, Ozuna had everything with the domestic violence dispute. Charlie Morton's another one. I mean, they went out there. You know what? I actually have it pulled up here, and I'm going to mention it because I know he's not on the show tonight, and I had it here, and now I'm going to have to pull it back up. Yes, we are. Absolutely, we are.
God.
Quote from Casey Bryant. You know, once upon a time in a primetime rundown, buy some cheap rental outfielders at the deadline and take the NL East. Not only was I met with skepticism, but Robert Peter DeLuca said
I was going to do that during my turn, all right?
On the year. Lest we forget that freezing cold take. Expletive the Stros and double expletive the Mets. Sports are meaningless. Eat at Arby's. So that was a direct text.
I was gonna backtrack on that and take care of that during my turn. But okay.
Well, I figured I had to try to throw Rob under the bus at some point. But
let me channel my inner Tony Reali and just hit the mute button there.
Rob DeLuca, your rebuttal.
But listen, this is the first real championship for the Atlanta Braves, because the only one that they won leading into this year was the one in 95 when they played the shortened season and won post-strike. So this is a 162-game season. Good for the Braves. Good for Brian Snitker. I'm hoping Ronnie Washington's going to get a managerial job somewhere. He deserves it after all the success he had those couple of years in Texas. Congrats to the Braves. It's well-deserved with all the adversity they faced and the fact the Mets didn't run away with the division. They went out there. Adam Duvall went out there, got Jorge Soler, who was batting like 190 in Kansas City before he came to Atlanta and somehow hits the longest home run in World Series history, probably. So I think it's just fantastic for Atlanta and the Braves that they won this championship. It's well deserved.
It went over the choo-choo train. Okay, that home run was wild. Rob DeLuca, your response to Ian Schraier and him taking the spotlight out of your mouth.
Yeah, look. I told the Braves you're 500, you're 44 and 44. Call it quits. You know, Acuna's out for the year. You're dealing with too many injuries. Just ride out the deadline and just kind of play baseball for the rest of the year. They played baseball all right. They certainly did. They played some of the best baseball you'd ever seen. And it led to this, and it's a beautiful thing. The Atlanta Braves are this year's St. Louis Blues, essentially. Like St. Louis Blues of 2019, you know, they were in last place in January. And then they ended up winning the Stanley Cup that very same season, dead last place. And now they were champs, and it's almost the same with the Braves. It's hard to say. But it was basically the same thing because it was like a halfway point of the season. We've hit the halfway point. The Braves aren't too good. You know, they're 500. It's injuries left and right. And then losing Charlie Morton in the World Series, it seemed like disaster was about to set in.
In game one, no less.
In game one, it seemed like disaster was on its way. And the Braves just figured it out. Took down the evil empire in Houston. And how does it feel for the Houston Astros to be the reverse San Francisco Giants and go to the World Series every other year, but lose every single time?
And how about the Houston
really
Astros?
Good. Must
the Houston
feel
Astros
really
have
good,
actually,
right?
the Houston Astros have been in the World Series 3 years? The 2 years that they've
right,
they've
17
lost,
right every other year, and it was
they've lost
and they're 0-3.
They've lost both times on home field.
Isn't it a beautiful thing? Yeah, all 3 times. It's unbelievable how they've managed to just screw up 3 times, not winning a World Series when they were primed to do it, and they've just never had a championship, and they will continue to never have championships because that is how the city of Houston operates with no championships.
I don't think you can undersell though, and you said you spoke a little about how they just found a way to do it. I mean, the performance it's twofold for the Braves. I mean, the performance of their bullpen. Luke Jackson. This was a team that came in and they addressed their bullpen last year, especially at the trade deadline when they went out and they traded for guys like Shane Green, and they tried to address it and tried to make a run in the playoffs, and we saw them get to the NLCS. But guys like Minter, AJ Minter, Luke Jackson, Tyler Matzik, they found ways to put it together. And then it was right. Yeah. And it wasn't even the top of the order guys. No Acuna, no Ozuna. I mean, it was your bottom really.
Yeah, the right guy stepped up. That's what it takes.
It was D'Angelo Swanson. It was Travis d'Arnaud. Hey, credit to Met on winning a title. It was those type of guys, not like Ozzie Albies, not really Freddie Freeman. It was your bottom of the order guys who you really need to step up when your middle of the order guys aren't producing as much. And that's really what makes the Braves story so special is how many times the Astros came back and very easily the Braves could have folded throughout that entire series, and they were just resilient.
Yeah, it's beautiful. It's honestly that's what you do. You have the guys, you have the depth guys stepped up, and that's what it takes. That is what it takes. It's what it took. And the evil empire is dead for a third World Series. It is a beautiful thing to see.
And I'll get to it shortly, but I do believe that the evil empire is officially dead.
Let's hope to God it is.
A minute. Mike Zabo right below me. Go ahead.
So, yeah, this is a team that, you don't see this stuff often where they weren't a great regular season team, injuries or not. 88 wins, that was enough to win the NL East. They get in and they just found lightning in a bottle and put together an incredible postseason run. It's something that it's special to see. It normally doesn't happen that often. Yeah, sometimes, most of the time we don't see the best teams win, but a lot of times we don't see a sort of run like what the Braves pulled off. Just to give you a comparison, I constantly heard this on Twitter. I know Ian won't like this as a Mets fan, but the 06 Cardinals. This is very emblematic of that team. It's very similar. You can find a lot of similarities between that team and this year's Atlanta Braves and the run that they had, how fantastic it was. Ian alluded to it. I think the World Series MVP, forget about Jorge Soler. It was the Atlanta Braves' bullpen. Being able to account for the loss of Charlie Morton. All those guys mentioned, AJ Minter, Matzik and whatnot, able to put up some really big outs and really be able to string together the pitching for this Atlanta Braves side, keep them in the game, and their offense went to work. I mean, they just found another gear in the postseason. Guys that, you mentioned Jorge Soler was a 190 batting average guy in Kansas City. All of a sudden, all of this just came out of nowhere, and they wind up being able to grind out great at-bats, get some timely hits, great runs and whatnot. It was just really, really fantastic to see. Like Rob said, I think whether you're a Yankee fan or not, like, it's great to see the Houston Astros go down. And of course, that empire is probably eventually breaking up thanks to the beautiful thing called free agency. So
enjoy Detroit, Carlos Correa. Maybe you can bring the Tigers back.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, hats off to the Atlanta Braves for a great World Series, a great postseason in general. And, if you want to be the superstitious one for all the Yankee fans out there, I mean, the last time the Yankees
stop.
How
different that team was, really.
Ian, you know it's true. Ian, you know it's true. It's coming.
Can I just double back, though, to Mike's point about the 06 Cardinals? I'm not going to even make it a Mets-related point, but in a way it is. The runs, like you said, Mike, are very similar, like strikingly similar, because really for the Braves and the Cardinals, the runs for them started in September, or really the second half of the season. But the teams, when you look at the rosters and who they had available, at least within their lineup and what they could do offensively, two completely different tales of the tape. I mean, you had Freddie Freeman in the Braves lineup. You had Jorge Soler, Dansby Swanson, Ozzie Albies. Like there wasn't a lot of star power. You looked at the Cardinals in 06. You had Yadi Molina, Jim Edmonds, Scott Rowland, David Eckstein. I'm sure I'm leaving out a couple of other names. Just names like that. As in comparison, like when the Mets went up against the Cardinals in 06, God, I still hate you, Aaron Heilman. But it's not even Carlos Beltran. I hate you, Aaron Heilman, because I hated you that whole season, because I think you really had it out for the Mets because they didn't make you a starting pitcher like you wanted. Was the difference between those two teams. Like, I could understand the run, but from a perspective of roster, they were two completely different teams.
Well, yeah, you just look at what the outfield was for the Braves in the first half of the year compared to what wound up to be in the World Series. Night and day difference.
Exactly right.
And just a few years ago, too, this was a team that employed Nick Markakis as well.
Yeah.
When they got him from the Baltimore Orioles, and he was looking for a World Series ring. He couldn't get it there. He couldn't even make the playoffs in Atlanta. But that's really unfortunate for him. But, yeah, exactly what you guys said. You guys spoke about the outfield. You spoke about the Evil Empire as well. And this is something else that I want to bring up here. And looking at the free agents with this entire team, the Houston Astros, that is, Zach Greinke, Justin Verlander, Carlos Correa, Martin Maldonado, Kendall Graveman. That crew of four can potentially make or break a playoff trip. And I think that seeing that now, Carlos Correa has already expressed that he will not be back in Houston. So with that being said now, where will he go? He will get a massive payday. As Rob DeLuca alluded to earlier, there is a possibility, a good chance, because this Detroit Tigers team is beginning to rebuild, or rather they are in the midst of a rebuild. And they also have a former familiar friend by the name of AJ Hinch at the helm as the manager of the Tigers. This team is ready to take a leap, I think, anyway, and Carlos Correa would be a perfect person to head over there. And you never know, too. We keep hearing little rumors here and there, and not even rumors, but also, pokes at Justin Verlander and saying, please come on home. Come on home. Listen, maybe one more try. Who knows? It's definitely possible because, in my opinion, Houston is complete. Next year, and don't get me wrong, Kyle Tucker, he is someone that really has made a name for himself in right field. Michael Brantley has done a phenomenal job out in left. But this team, ever since George Springer has left, has not been the same. They are not this powerhouse that they were when they went to a few World Series. Yes, they won one with a massive asterisk on it. This team is completely done for. Will they continue to make the playoffs under Dusty Baker? There's no doubt about it they will. They will not be the perennial of the American League anymore. No doubt about it. This is something else that I want to bring up here. And this is something that I got to see. I believe it was our good friend Sweeney Murdy from WFAN tweeted this, as well as a few other Atlanta Braves outlets. I saw Sweeney Murdy. He did post that. I believe it was him. I don't know. But if it wasn't, please, tell me that's the case and, tell me to stop. But this is a big one here. The Braves were 44-44 when Ronald Acuna was injured. They won 44 games before the All-Star break. They won 44 games after the All-Star.
Yes, yep.
They won the World Series.
Vince Scully tweeted this, yes.
Oh, Vince Scully tweeted it. Okay. They won the World Series on the 44th week of the year. They played the whole season with 44 displayed on the center field grass. And who wore number 44? The late, great Hank Aaron. Could there have been an angel in the outfield? Very possible. Hank Aaron might have struck something down over there and brought the championship to Atlanta and helped this team propel past the finish line and over the evil empire. And, they're known as the Houston Astros. Guys, let's keep on moving forward here. Quick sports update. We're not going to go into it, but Brett Gardner is officially a free agent for the first time in his career. A club option was declined. A player option was declined. I hope he returns on a minimum deal, but that's just me. And Mike Szabo's not too happy about it.
I think Joey at this point wants Gardy to be in the Bronx till he's about 50.
That is right.
So do I.
Because it will forever be a Gardy party whenever
it will forever be a Gardy party.
It'll be a Gardy party with no ring. That's what it's going to be.
Oh,
well, listen, he's got one.
He's got one. He's going to be the greatest third base coach the Yankees have ever seen because he actually knows how speed and arms in the outfield actually work. So he'd be the first third base coach. Here's the thing. Mike, here's the thing. It keeps him out of the outfield, and on the Yankees, everybody wins.
Oh, fine. They're fine with me as long as he's not on the field because he's done.
That's all I'm saying.
He's done.
It keeps him out of the lineup on the Yankees. How does everyone not win that way?
And number 11 will never be worn again. Ha ha.
Absolutely, yeah. I completely agree.
Please don't agree because that was the most.
You know what? I actually had somebody tweet that to me. About him. He's being in Monument Park. But
I don't know about Monument Park. I just think it's going to be a few years before someone wears 11 again.
You know how the Yankees whoever plays 10 plus years or whatever, they still mention them. Maybe not give them a plaque, but they still.
It's going to be a few years before someone dons number 11.
Well, similar to Paul O'Neill. Paul O'Neill's number is not retired. 21 is not retired.
But people don't wear. Yeah, but people.
Nobody wears 21. And
it's going to kind of be like that.
Listen, let's not put Brett Gardner on the level of
Paul O'Neill. No. I'm saying give it 2-3 years. You're not going to see number 11 for a while.
That's another thing too. Is that remember the return of Roger Clemens? Okay, back in 2006 when 22 was revived and taken out of the the dust had to be wiped off the 22 jerseys. The next person to wear it, you ready for this, ladies and gentlemen? This is a fantastic stat that I have to give you. And Rob DeLuca might spit out his water when I say this.
I know where you're going with this.
The number 22 to wear after, and I know DeLuca knows. I want to ask Mike Szabo this because he's a Yankees fan. I want to know, Mike, who wore number 22 after Roger Clemens?
He's younger. He won't know.
That's true.
Jacoby Ellsbury, no?
No.
There was one more before him, though.
There was. Ian Schraier, I got to ask you.
Ian should know this.
22?
That's right.
I have no clue.
All right. I'll give him a hint.
I got it.
I'll give him a hint.
All right, go ahead.
It was before he switched to 24.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. You're right. Yeah, that's true. I wasn't even thinking him, but yeah, that's true.
Mike Szabo, don't you know?
Robbie Cano Robbie Cano wore 22 for
Yes,
us?
he did.
Wow.
He very
Yes, he
briefly
did.
wore.
I didn't know
And
that.
Wow,
we have to keep, yeah, and we
wow.
have to keep in mind too is that the New York Yankees, as well as George Steinbrenner, had a big problem with that. Okay, had a
Because
big
Robbie
problem.
Cano was never in George's box. Was that? Did it have something to do with that, or?
I believe so. But then right after Robbie Cano had 24 in 2008, we're just giving a little history lesson here. Former New York Yankees legend Xavier Nady
Yes.
had number 22.
Former New York Met Xavier Nady.
That's right.
Come on,
And former
baby.
Pittsburgh Pirates legend Xavier Nady. Yes.
sir.
Mike Zabo, do you know who that is?
No, I don't.
That's okay.
Oh,
That's okay. He's a
Better off
little.
you don't know.
Ian, remember, we're this old. Mike's in college. We got to cut him some slack.
That's right.
Mike,
right.
I have to torture myself. What year were you born?
2000.
Yeah.
Oh dear Lord. Oh dear Lord.
He's a baby. He's a baby, ladies and gentlemen. He is a
Oh
baby.
man.
Ian, you're old. Deal with it.
When you made that 06, so when you made that 06 Cardinals mention to me, you were basically still in diapers, is what you're telling me.
I think I was a little older
Joey,
than diapers.
Send us to the Big East.
No, that's actually going to send us not to the Big East just yet. That's going to send us because we weren't even, that was just a sports update. We still got Nick Castellanos because we have to realize something is that a home run to deep left field and it's 4-0 because of Nick Castellanos. But will we
You have to go there.
Will we see Nick Castellanos in a Cincinnati Reds uniform next year after he opted out, Ian Schraier, or will we see him in a New York Mets uniform? What do you got?
Well, I can hope, right? I mean, it's like the same people,
you only have a
like
14
the same
million
people that are
payroll.
hoping that Carlos Correa is going to join his Puerto Rican brothers, Javi Baez and Francisco Lindor in New York.
That would be the dumbest move that he could ever make. But go on.
Don't let that stop you.
That's true.
I could see it. I could see it in some way. I mean, listen, Wade Miley. I mean, he's now out of Cincinnati, which I thought was very interesting.
There's got to be reasoning behind that.
You know, 1 year. I mean, you couldn't get him back on a 1 year, $10 million deal for a guy who was probably at one point during the season probably going to finish in the top 5 voting for the NL Cy Young Award. I'm not saying that Wade Miley's season wasn't lightning in a bottle. That's very much what it probably was. I mean, the guy had never had career numbers like he had put up this year. 6 WAR in Cincinnati of all places. You're pitching half your season in a hitter's ballpark like Cincinnati, but
6 WAR is ridiculous.
Yeah.
For those that may not understand that whole stat, it means wins above replacement, and having a 6 is absurd. It means you're very, very, very good at what you do.
Yeah, but for Castellanos, I mean, I think he was averaging 17 million AAV when he opted out of his contract. I think there was very much everything was on the table with the weight, with how clutch he was this year for Cincinnati. I mean, I feel like in every big spot this year for the Reds, especially as they kind of tried to surge towards in the wild card standings and were in postseason contention for I would say for almost the entire season. Castellanos came up with just about every big hit. It was him or Jesse Winker, and Winker's well under contract as a control player for still some time. But for Castellanos, he's entering the prime of his career right now. He's 29 years old. He's going to get probably somewhere in the range of 4 to 5 years. I mean, I'm sure he would love more, but I think in a perfect world, max 5-year deal, somewhere in the range of 20 to 25 million a year, I think is what he's looking at. Guys in the prime of his career, he's been a clutch hitter. I would love to see him as a Met. I would love to see Conforto go and Castellanos in a Mets uniform. But I think that the Reds should absolutely entertain the idea of bringing him back. I mean, he was a huge part. I mean, I myself wrote off the Reds when Trevor Bauer was gone. And I'm like, there's no way they're going to be able to make anything materialize with the fact that they were banged up almost the whole year. And yet somehow Nick Castellanos single-handedly, for the most part, kept that team in the hunt. So I think that, like Rob said, I think that Wade Miley move is very intriguing as to whether or not I know they're not a big spending team in a league where there is no cap. But I think for Castellanos, I think returning to Cincinnati would be great for him. If not, I think he's going to get some money elsewhere. The matter is, I would love it for it to be the Mets, but we'll see where the money lands for him. He's going to get a big contract.
You brought up, Ian, just a few seconds ago about there's a possibility that this team could be trending in the wrong direction, especially following Wade Miley departing Cincinnati for Chicago. Then you also have this is another move that really I personally didn't see coming. I thought he was going to retire a Red and potentially get buried under Great American Ballpark. Was Tucker Barnhart.
Yeah,
one of the catchers there. He was traded to Detroit. And that to me was one of the biggest shocks of the offseason, or I would say the offseason so far.
Not a shock to me.
Tucker Barnhart. Go ahead.
Not a shock to me, but go ahead.
Go ahead, Mike Szabo. Let's hear why.
Well, going around Twitter and the rumors going on through the playoffs, and this is what happens when the Yankees get eliminated early, is the never-ending talk about, do we like Gary Sanchez? Do we not like Gary Sanchez? And back and forth.
The conversation's tiring,
and Barnhart was constantly mentioned. Would be a cheap cost to be able to trade for him for the Yankees, a very good defensive catcher who put up solid offensive number, nothing amazing, but solid offensive numbers. His name was constantly being thrown around Yankees Twitter in the past couple of weeks. The Yankees had some slight interest in him as well, not just something that was going around on Twitter. And in the first day of the offseason, boom, he goes to the Tigers, which is a phenomenal pickup for them. And it's a big player. He's the best catcher on the market, really, in a very thin market. And it's a big target off of the catching market for anybody looking for it, and potentially could be the Yankees. So that's why I say it's not a surprise, because it's been talked about.
Well, even though it has been, though, this Cincinnati Reds team is supposed to be an up-and-coming team, and they're trying to get back to their 2013 roots, where they made it to the divisional series with headlined with Todd Frazier and Joey Votto and Scooter Gennett and these guys. Eugenio Suarez was still there. And remember Scooter Gennett, ladies and gentlemen, when he was supposed to be the third baseman of this entire this entire I guess decade, if you will. And all of a sudden that completely went down the tubes. It simply did not work for them. And they then all of a sudden, I don't want to say went all in, but it's very difficult I was very confused when they traded Barnhart, where this is a team that you would figure that he would be behind the plate, being able to do whatever it can be, whatever he could do. And his defensive prowess is really amazing. His bat is a little lackluster, but I think that what Detroit did, I think they come out as winners, and we'll see what happens on the free agent market if Cincinnati just continues to go down a route of maybe not spending as much money. I don't know what's really going to happen there, but very questionable move in my eyes.
Yeah, well, this is the thing. This is the weird thing, is that with the looming CBA negotiation, whether or not there's obviously the conversation about where the luxury tax threshold is going to wind up, but there's been constant talk about implementing a spending floor for all MLB teams, which I think would be phenomenal. So you think one way or another, teams that typically don't spend are going to have to spend, not just out of necessity to fill that requirement. And you think a team like Cincinnati, who has some good pieces around, especially young pieces all around the field, and is in a division that is not particularly strong. You always feel like you have a shot in the NL Central, no matter how you're doing yourself. You'd think you'd really be going for it, and it's just questionable moves all around.
You want to find a way to keep Nick Castellanos in Cincinnati, and you want to talk about a spending floor. How about Carlos Correa maybe to Cincinnati, and finally finding a way to unload Eugenio Suarez out of Cincinnati? I mean, this is a guy who just strikes out, this being Suarez, a whole lot. And I think you want to entertain finding a way to keep the best player, your most clutch player, basically your best player this season, to come back and make yourself a contender, go out and get the biggest fish on the market. And I think that would be a very interesting move for Cincinnati. Whether or not they'll finally spend and finally go out there and not try to find value and try to kind of bargain shop, I mean, that remains to be seen. But I think a lot comes back to the CBAs that Mike's talking about. But can the Reds finally, break that mold? They've got a reputation of spent, promoting players, homegrown players, trying to find young talent. And even when you go out there and sign big free agents, they're really mid-tier free agents at that point that you're hoping to get a little more high risk, high reward, or low risk, high reward, however you want to play it. But I think that would be an interesting idea or a thought maybe for the Reds. If they really want to think about contending, that might be a play.
It's really wild to see. And now there also might be a little bit of a possibility that now Mike Moustakas may have to shift into the outfield, because now they might now have a hole at third base, and they might have to move Eugenio Suarez over. And now, Ian, as you brought up with Carlos Correa, there could potentially be that little spot open for him. Remember, and again, we brought up Jeanette earlier, that left side of the infield was supposed to be locked up for this Cincinnati Reds team for the better part of the last decade, and it simply did not work out. So then you retry with Eugenio Suarez, you retry by signing and locking up Mike Moustakas to a big deal. That did not work. And then all of a sudden now you have to have starting at shortstop Kyle Farmer. I mean,
Moustakas, the thing with Moustakas is that he's just, when you look at his numbers so far in Cincinnati, he's been a regular 25, close to 100 guy. I think that just this year injuries kind of ate him up, and he just did not perform to the same level that he had been performing the last couple of years. And he's also aging. So I think that's a discussion you have too. I think I think Mike Moustakas is a perfect player to say to yourself, okay, if the universal DH gets approved, that's what Mike Moustakas becomes. I think he's at that point of his career where he no longer plays third base, or you try to put him at first or put him in the outfield. He would be a perfect DH guy. His defense is going to lack. But I think Moustakas has really turned out to be okay for them. If you look at it, if you look at his stats, he's been a 25, close to 100 guy. It's just this year he's really fallen. He really fell off, and I think it's kind of the start of a regression for him. And I think if they still have him under contract, I think a DH spot would be perfect for him.
Let's go to DeLuca, as he always does, to close us out of baseball.
Yeah, the analysis was all there, so I'll keep this real brief because we have a lot of show left and not a lot of time. So here's how I feel about it. I think Nick Castellanos stays in Cincinnati. I think there's nowhere else he goes. 6 years, $180 million. Nick Castellanos getting big payday from the Reds to be their guy for the next 6 years. $30 million a year.
I'll make the final thought then. Open up your wallet, Stephen A. Cohen. I believe that this is the player for you. It is about time that you try and win this fan base back.
I agree. No, you know what? That's it. Yeah, you got a $14 billion payroll. Get to work on spending the money. It's that simple. I completely agree with you.
Wait.
Overall,
GM,
I don't think he'll do it.
Let's first not strike out on a GM in Queens, please.
Right. Ian, you want some ice for that?
Look, he's not wrong. He's not wrong, and I'm not going to sit there and try to defend the fact that this team has literally basically, I think at this point, I think their next call is to Jeffrey the Giraffe from Toys R Us. I mean, the next president of baseball operations. I mean, he'll have a long way to go to reach into his wallet, but I think that might be a good choice.
Oh, yeah.
I thought Mike, and I'm not going to try and jump on the mess because I know we have to move on, but I thought for anyone who's listening and watching, do yourself a favor. I read the post that Mike sent me that Puma wrote about what Chili Davis kind of finally, now that his contract has expired with the Mets, because even though he was let go, his contract didn't end until the end of this year. He unloaded on the Mets front office and said that the Mets need to clean house and get these Wilpon guys out. They need to get these Sandy guys out. And I know there's a lot of people defending Sandy. There's a lot of people that aren't defending Sandy, and I'm going to stop it here. it's a very interesting read. I would recommend you guys.
Yeah, no, I think
anybody who's a Met fan who's tuning in, definitely, it's a quick read. It's a couple of minutes, but it's a good article to really look into to see what's going on inside that Mets front office.
Castellanos
you
should be
definitely
a Met.
don't want that. You definitely don't want that in the papers with some big free agent decisions and trying to make that leap up.
Yep.
Sure. Yeah, no, Castellanos should be a Met, but I think he likes Cincinnati too much. So I think he'll take the big payday that the Reds are going to try to give him to keep him.
Well, I think it also comes down with the Mets to Michael Conforto, and if they decide they want to keep him.
I mean, I would really hope you sacrifice Michael Conforto if Nick Castellanos.
Oh yeah, no. But I think the Mets' focus initially is going to be trying to QO Conforto. He's going to decline it because he's a Boras agent, and he thinks Boras always thinks his clients are worth more money than they are.
Absolutely. So yeah.
I digress. Let's move on.
That's baseball, baby. Let's get to something we almost never talk about on this show, Joey.
Well, not only do we never talk about it, that is, I want to call a lie. We do talk about it really only in season. And guess what, ladies and gentlemen? 4 days away from college basketball. It is one of the greatest times of the year. Mike Szabo, I want to start with you. St. John's, the Red Storm. We cover them here at the Eastern Observer. You are the co-sports director at my former alma mater, or at my alma mater, at St. John's University, at their radio station, WSJU. So really an absolute kudos to you for keeping the good times rolling, if you will, over at that radio station and keeping it really afloat. So an amazing job by you and to everybody there that is running that sports department. But with all, I guess, we'll keep on rolling there. St. John's, they play Mississippi Valley State on Tuesday. A real nail-biter there, Mike. What do you got for the St. John's team this upcoming season that they're supposed to be finishing in the top 5 in the Big East this season?
Well, first off, I appreciate all the kind words, Joey. It's certainly, it's our busy part of the year heading into on campus, our busy part of the year coming up. The game on Tuesday, I mean, listen, this is I know it's a game, it's a non-conference schedule that leaves a lot of fans a lot left to be desired, but I think it's intentional. People don't want me saying this because there are a lot of sections of St. John's fan base that just really has a huge expectation, whether it's warranted or not, from year to year on their team. We gotta play real good. We gotta play real good opponents, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I think it's done intentionally. That this is really an entirely new team that really got hit by the new transfer rules this past off season. They have 9 new guys between transfers and freshmen. So I don't blame them, honestly, for not going with a terrible, grueling non-conference schedule. Get everybody, get that team chemistry flowing, get everybody to gel, and they start that on Tuesday night against Mississippi Valley State, who, if you all read the Sports Illustrated article, I believe by Kevin Sweeney on Twitter, basically, listed, ranked every single Division I team from 1 to 358, and Mississippi Valley State checks in at 357. So it should be a slam dunk win for St. John's on opening night. Once again, like I shouted out on the radio show, it is my mom's birthday on Tuesday, so hopefully they do get her a good birthday win.
Mrs. Szabo.
For whatever reason, St. John's always likes to have opening night on my mom's birthday. Every single year, it almost winds up to be. It never fails. But hopefully they get a good win there. It should be a nice win. You've seen some stuff that you liked. We've had 2 exhibitions, really. One, the quote-unquote secret scrimmage that in all of college basketball, I hate that term because they're the worst kept secrets. And then, of course, you had the exhibition last week against Baruch. You see some things you like, you see some things you don't. Same thing with every team. Biggest thing is chemistry and for this team to gel. And that's where, whether they're going, that's basically the difference of whether they finish in the top 5 or they're going to be a bit of a disappointment and finish at like 6 or 7 this year. It all depends on how they gel. The prognosis of what you've seen over the past couple of years with Mike Anderson has generally been good. They've been a team that, they don't, I don't want to say they don't start great, but they are usually not their best, and they usually get better and better as the season goes on and play their best basketball when the lights start to get brightest, which is always what you want to see happen. And you hope that trend continues this year. It's just, can they all gel together? The most concerning thing going into the first couple of games, I know we'll go more into St. John, so I'll end off on this, is the turnovers. I know it's exhibition games or whatnot, but you see 16 turnovers against Baruch, 18 in the secret scrimmage against Rhode Island. One was a win, one was a 50-point win, like 104 to 43 or whatever it was. The other was an 85 to 83 loss to Rhode Island in the secret scrimmage. You see all those turnovers. That's a big red flag. You cannot have that happen in a regular season game, especially when you get to the Big East games. That's just an absolute killer. In the game against Rhode Island, they put Rhode Island at the free throw line 31 times. Imagine if that happens against Villanova. You deserve to lose that game then. And like I said, the turnovers are the most concerning thing. But I think that clears itself up as this team continues to gel, continues to play with each other. And there's real hype around this team. Like, you can count on one hand how many times a St. John's team has had this kind of hype going into the season since I've been alive. And they're capable of it. It's, can they just put it all together and gel together and be able to make that run? That's the key question.
Yeah, and something I want to point out here as well, because I do have the box score up here just before we get to Ian Schraier. The big thing, Mike, that really scared me this entire time, and just by looking at this and really getting to see what this team is supposed to be capable of, especially down low, and really their big man presence in Joel Soriano. And again, I can't only say him, but I look at 42 to 30 in points in the paint, and I say to myself too, it's very difficult, especially when you've got a whole new roster essentially, and this team really needs to gel. You brought up about how 21 for 31 from the free throw line. Give it time, but I agree with you on the fact that this team should not be going up against the Mississippi Valley State, should not be going up against the St. Francis Brooklyn in the NEC, should not be going up against teams like NJIT. It simply should not be, and I don't care if it's intentional. I look to, and again, and I don't want to say this because I know Rob DeLuca is going to say, yes, they're trash. Seton Hall, the way Kevin Willard does it in terms of their non-conference schedule, is always the best.
Well, here's the difference, in my opinion, with the Seton Hall thing, is that they're more established, and Willard likes to schedule that way. And I'm no way in defending how St. John's operates. I think they need to find, in future years, they need to find a more happy medium from the kind of schedule the non-conference schedule you see this year. Or remember, Joey, the god-awful one that we saw in 2018 in the last year of Chris Mullen?
Yeah.
You think this year's non-conference schedule is light. Remember that one.
Yeah. Well, I mean, they went 12-0.
I think they need to find a happy medium between where Seton Hall is and what they're doing this year. They need to find a happy medium. Because I don't believe in a grueling non-conference schedule. I think that can really do well for your NCAA tournament RPI, but that's only if you take advantage of it. If you don't, you really put yourself in a bad position already heading into non-conference play, and then you've emptied the tank already. So I think you need to find a happy medium. The worst part is, once again, with this team, is you're hanging your hat. No matter where they finish, we can argue where they'll finish in the Big East, how good they'll do or whatnot. They're putting all their chips once again into conference play. They only have two legitimately good NCAA tournament games.
Yeah, no, I agree with you, Mike. It's extreme.
Indiana away and the Kansas game at UBS are their only two good opportunities. Pitt isn't the game that they envisioned it to be when they scheduled it back in February. When they scheduled that, they expected that to be a marquee game that they were going to market the hell out of at Madison Square Garden.
Now it means nothing.
Penny versus Champaign, two NCAA tournament caliber teams and whatnot. And mostly on the Pitt side, that has completely changed. So you can't really fault them for that one. But they really have only 2 real opportunities to make a big statement in the non-conference season and get a notch on their NCAA tournament resume. That's the biggest frustration, I think, is for St. John's fans is, okay, we'll probably go figure what, 10-2
probably.
at the
10-2,
worst.
absolutely. We're going to go
10-2 at the
10-2.
worst. You're hoping for 11-1 and split that Indiana and split one of those 2 games.
Yeah.
But it's mostly against teams like Mississippi Valley State, St. Francis of Brooklyn, Fordham, teams that like do nothing for you in terms of your NCAA tournament resume. That's what I think is most frustrating for fans.
Mike's right. I mean, there's no other way to put it.
I think the one non-conference game that we haven't spoken about yet that I think is very, very intriguing, and it hasn't been discussed yet because I think they're kind of hidden a little bit as a conference champion last year is Colgate. Game that December 12th game against Colgate, they won the Patriot League last year, and that was a team that was a conference really for much of the year that seemed like it was belonging to Navy. So that was a year turned out to be Colgate's year, and I think that's a very interesting game. It's at Carneseca on December 12th. I think it's a 1:00 start. I think that's a game that as St. John's fans, you got to be a little bit wary of. But I think to Mike's point, hit the nail right on the head. I mean, what is the shame? I mean, at this point, I think you're already an established Big East program. No one's saying you got to go to Maui. No one's saying no one's inviting them right now to the Champions Classic. But like at the same time, no one's saying you can't play in the preseason NIT. No one's saying that you shouldn't be playing.
They were scheduled to last year. What happened to that?
Right. I mean, like who's saying that you can't go down and play in that tournament at Disney against a couple of real good teams? I think Seton Hall's going down there next year. So like to the Seton Hall point. But if you want to talk about playing local teams, even though they nearly lost to St. Peter's last year, why not call Stony Brook? That's a better game. Why not? I mean, really, if you want to like
call Hofstra or St. Bonaventure.
Not even Hofstra. Like if you want to, I think Hofstra's probably going to take a little bit of a step back this year,
Yeah, sure.
But I know they have a lot of transfers, and you want to talk about a program with a very heavy Power 5 non-conference schedule. Look at Hofstra's. Oh my God, they're opening their season at Houston. They've got Houston, they've got Arkansas. I mean, I'm not going to get too much into Hofstra, but you want to look up at the mid-major conferences, and you want to look at the America East. Go schedule Vermont. Go schedule Stony Brook. Yeah. You want to look at the MAC. Go schedule Manhattan. Go schedule Iona. Iona, a tournament team you could schedule. Give Patino a call. You want to look at the Colonial, like you did mention Hofstra. That's a team right off the bat. Look, Northeastern, Seton Hall has them on the schedule. Northeastern is a perennial Colonial winner just about every year. So those are games right there, bang, that you should be knocking out. I understand, like when you look at it, but also, when you look at the transition from Mullen to Mike, and you see that the scheduling hasn't changed too much. I don't know if that's really on Mullen as much as that is on whoever is really scheduling the games for men's basketball.
Mike Cragg.
Each year. If it is Mike Cragg, I'm not sure.
Probably a committee, I would say.
It might be a committee of people who are just, trying to schedule local games just to try to rack up wins. But also it goes back when you look at the non-conference schedule last year, and if they start collecting a couple of losses to a Fordham, I mean, I don't think a Colgate loss will hurt them too much, but if they lose one of those games, your RPI is going to go down, and it doesn't help your strength of schedule. I mean, that is a huge, huge factor in deciding who goes to the NCAA tournament. And yeah, your Big East play is definitely going to help. There's no doubt about it. But when you're playing teams like St. Pete's, Mississippi Valley State, Fordham, NJIT, and NJIT wasn't a bad team last year. They weren't terrible, but they weren't good. That's the concern. My concern for St. John's, really, when you look at the team as a whole, take Julian Champagny and Posh Alexander completely out of the formula. I know Dylan Adewusu is coming off of injury. I think he's supposed to be ready to roll. I'm not sure. But to me, after watching the exhibition against Baruch and seeing the box score from the game against URI, to me, it comes down to 3 players, and they're all transfers. Steph Smith, Montez Mathis, and Joel Soriano. Yeah. That is what is going to decide St. John's season. When you look at the guys who came off the bench, I think Steph Smith was 2 of 11 from the field against URI. That can't happen if he's going to start games. Soriano, I wasn't incredibly impressed with, and and Mathis really was picking up a lot of fouls in that Baruch game. So I think that's going to really what it's going to come down to. The pieces that they need. Listen, you're going to get your size. You're going to get your 40 minutes of hell on defense, and they're going to press teams and trap teams, and Posh and Julian are going to get their points. It's from those role players that we saw last year that they need to get consistent contribution, and that's where Mike used the perfect word, chemistry. And how long is it going to take for that chemistry to develop? You would think with a very light non-conference schedule in 12 games that, maybe you're willing to concede at this point to a game, to like a Kansas game or an Indiana game, and just get chemistry and get yourself built up for the Big East season. You're not doing yourself many favors that way, because we've seen how this team has started Big East play in the past. Losses to teams like Georgetown before they won the Big East championship, losses to a team like DePaul last year. So the St. John's does not need repetition of that. And if the chemistry is not there with those three guys, it's going to be very – I understand that they were picked high in the Big East poll for a reason. They have two of the best players in the conference, arguably. So I think there's something to be said for that, but also they cannot afford to not find a way to put it together within those 12 games and then come into Big East play and just get completely romped by teams like Nova and UConn, and we'll see who else rises to the top of the Big East.
I'll make one more note too about the exhibitions. I think especially the Rhode Island thing. I totally kept on seeing this get blown up on Twitter. I take it all with a grain of salt. The exhibition, at least you had a game. It was televised. You could watch it. I analyze it and whatnot. The URI game, all you were seeing is a box score. You can only tell so much from that. Steph Smith, as Ian said, 2 of 11 will not cut it, but who knows what they were doing. Maybe they were running different offenses. Guys just trying to figure out their shot selection. I mean, it's a game that doesn't count, so why not try some things? So I think there's also that into context. They lost the game by 2 in a game in which you could tell by the box score they played better in the second half, but Tariq Coburn played like 30 minutes. That's not going to happen in a regular season. As much as I love Tariq Coburn, Mike Anderson loves him. He seems like he's going to play a real solid bench role. He's never going to play 30 minutes a game. So there's also that. Like, there's some stuff, you just see, like, you're not going to see in that. But Ian's exactly right. They have to get off to, no matter what happens in non-conference, when conference play comes around, they cannot get off to a 1-5 start again and have to rely on this insane run through the end of the year and whatnot. And listen, they have the opportunity. You look at the schedule. I believe there's Seton Hall, but then there's Georgetown, Marquette, DePaul. Like, those are like, they should, in the first 5 games, they should be going 4-1. Yeah, at the very
easier said than done when it comes to St. John's, though.
Exactly.
Conversation so many times.
But I'm confident. I mean, this is a team that Mike Anderson, he's a very good coach. He puts the pieces together. The thing is, like, can they play what they play in February and March? Like, translate that a lot earlier. That's the thing. And they should. I mean, they have a couple of pieces carried over, your most important pieces, and then it just translates out from there. I think Joel Soriano, we brought him up, was a bit of a concern for me because he's going to get serious minutes, Mike. He's pivotal.
He's going to be the starting 5, no doubt.
He's pivotal to this team's success because we talk about St. John's has brought in a lot of size, and a lot of that was due to, yes, that's been a program issue for the last couple of years, but also last year, their interior defense was terrible. And it's going to be up to guys like Aaron Wheeler, Omar Stanley coming off the bench, but chiefly Joel Soriano to fix that. And his footwork, just watching that Baruch exhibition, his footwork has to get a lot better. Baruch did not have a person over 6'6" in terms of their height. And Joel Soriano is, constantly getting faked out by pump fakes and whatnot here and there when he has a foot height advantage. So his defensive footwork has to clean up. Certain aspects of the game has to clean up there because what you saw there, he really becomes if he plays like what you saw like that in those exhibition games where he's taking some silly fouls, wind up jumping early on a pump fake when he really just needs to be more patient, and that winds up drawing a foul. You do that in a Big East game, you're going to get into foul trouble early. They take you out of the game. That's a huge disadvantage for St. John's and whatnot. if he can figure that out and not be a guy who gets into foul trouble, this is a guy who's a walking double-double for St. John's. He has that capability. So that's my last note on that. I think he's hugely pivotal, and you want to see him more so than anybody else really pick it up through this non-conference season.
Mike, last point. Just want to say also, I think not only before we get to DeLuca, before he closes out basketball, not only chemistry, but also Mike Anderson has to figure out a rotation as well that really is going to really suffice for this team. In addition, as to what Ian brought up earlier, Dylan Adaiwusu is one of 3 players and student athletes from last year's squad who is a technical, I guess call it holdover, if you will, to next year, or one that didn't transfer. Julian Champagny, Posh Alexander, Dylan Adaiwusu, those 3, with one of those coming off the bench last year a ton. It's very difficult to see where we're going to go here. Who is going to be starting at the 5 role, which we know is Joel Soriano, and we're going to see if he can take over the role from what Tariq Owens did years ago. Can he be that player, which is what they're really hoping for? And also, too, just a couple of years ago, do we remember a name by Josh Roberts? He nearly led the league in blocks per game. It was like 6 blocks per game he had. It was something ridiculous. And it was an NCAA high as well. It was something like,
he was in the top 30 in the NCAA. Yeah,
I think he was in the top 10 in the NCAA in blocks and blocks per game. And now he's over at Manhattan. So there's a lot of room for this St. John's team to improve on, especially in the front court. DeLuca, conclude us with St. John's.
St. John's finally has the team, their young team, but they have the key core returning players. They got all of them back. It's very important. And at this point, they have put themselves in a position to either be a dance or a bust is essentially where they're at right now. Yeah, they're projected to finish top 5 in the Big East. Most coaches, Big East coaches poll put them 4th. They're getting votes in the top 25. They're not, now granted it's not a lot of votes, but they're still getting votes preseason. I agree with Mike. This soft schedule is not going to do anything for them. And if they blow one of these games, they're in deep trouble. So I agree with Mike completely. You got to find a happy medium with these games. You can't just have the extremes of playing Miss Valley State, which is one of the worst teams in Division I, and then swing it all the way over there to the number 3 team in the nation. It's not going to do any good for you. It essentially almost the way with this, if St. John's does not win those 10 other games in non-conference, they have a problem, because then if they lose one of them, it forces them to win in Bloomington. Otherwise it can't be compensated for. Mm-hmm. Because
and go on before we get to your dad's comment.
Yeah, no, that's just it. It's a perfect comment there. SJU men's basketball will be competitive. They're going to be very competitive. Everyone's got. It's looking like 4th in the Big East right now, behind UConn, behind Xavier, behind Xavier, and behind Villanova. So
I don't understand how X is there, but we can.
I mean, it's just based. It's all based on what Xavier returned, really. Yeah, look, they lost a lot.
Xavier
but they
also returned a lot.
Yeah, Xavier. Yeah, the X perfect is spot. Just somewhere where it's where they belong. They lost a few, but they brought everything else back.
No, they literally lost.
They added a few.
They lost none of their starters.
They lost nobody.
Oh, they lost so they lost nobody, and they brought in. So that's exactly why X is where they are. Yeah. And but I believe St. John's will be top 5. I believe they can finish 4th. I believe that they will be
what it was last year.
Yeah, they will be looking at an at-large bid here. They will do some damage in the Big East tournament. This is so as long as they do enough damage in the Big East tournament, it should be able to offset everything. Should they blow one of the non-conference games, based on the non-conference games?
Depends where they finish in the regular season, though, Rob.
Right, that's what I'm saying. I think let's say they finish 4th, they should be able to do some damage because they get a night off. They get a night off, which is something they haven't had in a long time. So it will be good to see. And I think as long as St. John's doesn't blow one of those 10 games that are layups, and yes, I'm calling every single one of them layups. Yes, Ian, I know Colgate can be tough. St. John's
they won the Patriot League last year.
I get they won the Patriot League. If St. John's
won, they hung with Arkansas for a half. There's no. Listen, Arkansas.
No, I agree with Ian there.
If St. John's doesn't win that game by double digits, this could be.
Wow.
So
Wow.
Because even
this St. John's team,
oh man,
this St. John's team is too prime. This St. John's team is too prime to be screwing any of these games up.
Not with 3 returners.
I think you could not be more wrong.
No, there's only 3 returners. But yeah, that's where you have to rely on these other guys. Like you have to rely on the depth guys. You have to rely on some of the young kids. You gotta expect something. That's why you're here. You can't. Yeah, but you can't. But then you can't be getting 4th place projections. It's that simple. It's that simple.
But that's also in
that is saying the coaches believe 3 guys can carry St. John's to 4th place. And that's a little crazy.
No, I don't think anyone's saying that, Rob. I just think
everybody will gel together, really. I don't think it's that.
And by the time December 20th rolls around, this team could be completely different from what we saw on November 9th or potentially November 23rd.
And you're not even going to know if they're a complete team until they even get to Indiana. I mean,
exactly.
That way. I'm not putting a lot of stock. I mean, as much as I want to watch the game, like I'm not putting a lot of stock in their first couple of games because there's going to be no telltale sign of what type of team they really are.
No, they're playing. They're playing.
The biggest key you'll be looking for is how they build. You'll be looking at certain individual performances and all of that.
But that's all you can take from it. If St. John's isn't winning those first couple games by over 20, it's.
Mike, are you really taking anything out of Tuesday? Are you really taking anything out of Tuesday, Mike?
No,
there's nothing to take.
You can take it like something out of it to write something about it.
Right. Mike's got to do what he's got to do. But here's the thing, Mike. Here's what to look out for Tuesday. Really, limit the turnovers. Because we saw that was a problem. Limit the turnovers. You limit the turnovers, and St. John's should win this game by at least 20, if not 30.
And because we're running low on time, this is the last point that Tuesday you have to look forward to. In addition to limiting the turnovers that Rob DeLuca said. You also have to look at a rotation that Mike Anderson has to figure out because by the time December 20th rolls around, you are going to have a brand new foundation that should be built for conference season. And that's the part where, yes, they are finished 4th. But this is the part where I agree with Ian with. That Colgate game is the biggest trap.
I'm not saying it's not a trap. But it is a trap. There's no question about it. But I'm saying they should win it, and they should win it comfortably. Yes, it can be a trap. I'm not saying
they will not win that game. I think that game will be less than 10 points.
It very well could be.
If Colgate is the same team, that they were last year as a tournament team, I think that is within 10 points. That might be a 2 possession.
It's within 10 points. Honestly, to me, a win is a win. Whatever.
Well,
but I'm saying is that. Like, if Rob's saying, like, they should win it comfortably, like, to me, if you're winning by 10 points or more against a team in the Patriot League that was a tournament team and St. John's was not a tournament team last year, I think there's something to be said for that. Like, I don't think you sleep. Like, how many times in the tournament last year did we see 5-12, 4-13, even 2-15 upsets?
I know.
The mid-major champions should not be taken lightly just because, it's Colgate. They really shouldn't do much against a team with a stature.
But buck up or shut up. This is St. John's time right now.
Is what has St. John's accomplished within the last few years?
But that's just it, Ian. It's that time. They danced in 2019. They were Big East tournament champions in 2020.
They went to the first 4 and got embarrassed.
Right? There's no denying it. They were embarrassed in 2019. They bounced back and won the Big East tournament in 2020. And last year was not the best year, not the worst year.
They're national champions, right?
They were the Big East champions. They led at halftime. That's right.
They led at halftime. It's that simple. They won the Big East.
That's all that they did. Well, Mr. DeLuca,
nonetheless, I agree with my dad. He aligns with me. Big East is win or leave. This is St. John's time to grab that at-large bid. They could if they do finish 4th. In fact, they really could do some damage in the Big East tournament. But I believe finishing in that 4th spot almost gives them an automatic bid. It will depend how they look in that first game, depending who that 5th seed is.
It's a legitimate
play them.
And I don't mean to interrupt you just because we do have a few more minutes left. But the biggest thing here also are those conference wins, and I think also the result Indiana, Kansas. We'll see if they get completely blown out.
And then and
then we'll see what happens in conference.
Right, and then we all go to the Rock. Joey, you, me, we'll grab my dad, we'll drag Ian along. It'll be a beautiful time, and we'll invade the Rock. It'll be beautiful.
One final part on college basketball before we close out with Jack Eichel. Ladies and gentlemen, breaking news here on the Primetime Rundown.
Now?
And keep in mind, Mike Szabo, hold your ears, and all St. John's fans, hold your listeners. Jaquan Sanders has officially committed to Seton Hall.
I've seen it coming for the last
forward. Let's keep on moving forward because that could be a whole nother conversation. But Jack Eichel was officially traded to the Vegas Golden Knights, which I would say surprised me. I had Anaheim written all over them. Rob DeLuca had the New York Rangers written all over it. Casey Bryant had Arby's written all over it.
Right. Here's the thing. I was right. The Pagulas just didn't want to send him there. That's all it was. I was right. The Rangers wanted him and wanted him badly and were willing to sell the farm to do it. But the Pagulas refused to keep him in New York.
Clearly, they didn't have to sell the farm based on what Vegas gave up.
I mean, that was a pathetic return.
I mean, really?
You got a couple of first-round picks that are going to be late.
I mean, wait a sec. We built
a first-round pick. It's going to be late.
For months and months and months, and this is the ending we get? Really?
Yeah, huge disappointment here in the hockey world, honestly. Huge.
And I think the big thing, too, is just before we get to Ian and DeLuca, before we get to our kudos here, is that I have no idea how this is all going to work out in the regular season. General Manager Kelly McCrimmon says, yeah, you figure 3 to 5 months how it's all going to work out. Listen, Kelly, there is a salary cap. There is a hard cap. Do we know what goes on here with $81.5 million? You cannot have a new big three go on in the regular season. This has long-term injured reserve written all over it and return for the first round of the playoffs. Ian Schraier, go ahead.
I mean, I was pretty surprised when I saw it was Vegas, considering what Vegas has at its disposal and the type of team.
They've got nothing. We saw it in the playoffs. They've got nothing.
I mean, aside from, I guess aside from a top line, but
they've got nothing. You saw it in the playoffs last year, and I can't believe I'm saying this. Lowly Montreal comes in and beats them. I'm sorry. That is for the amount of money that Vegas has spent last year and even the previous few years, you have basically destroyed your reputation in terms of securing these long-term deals. If I were Alex Pietrangelo, I would make sure that I never buy a house in Las Vegas. Why? Because I could be moved in a matter of 10 seconds. Why? Because Vegas has no loyalty towards their players. You know what they have loyalty in? Fantasy hockey. Go ahead.
In anticipation of what really grinds Joey's gears. I mean, I think
Joey, tell me how you really feel.
I don't like Vegas, and I don't like.
I don't like them either. I love the city.
I don't like Vegas. I don't like the fact that Vegas that they are handing out these contracts that they think they're literally handing out candy bars. They are we can continue to read the names over and over again. The
Tampa Bay West, right?
Say it again.
Tampa Bay West, right?
I mean, listen, the difference between Tampa Bay and Vegas is that Tampa actually commits to these players and they do not trade these guys. The only reason why Tampa does not have a third line now is because they simply can't afford them.
Yeah, they moved on. They didn't trade them.
Exactly.
They technically, one's on LTIR and they traded the other, right?
Exactly. So now the bottom line is that you also had Nate Schmidt, who was really a part and really a face of this franchise, who you shipped out to Vancouver in order to sign Alex Pietrangelo. You also shipped, you got Mark Stone, you got Max Pacioretty, you shipped off Marc-Andre Fleury with, mind you, this man did not have a clue that he was shipped out until he looked on Twitter. Guys, I'm done. Ian Schraier, that way. There you go.
I don't think I need to take it much further than that.
There's nothing more to say. Vegas is a great city, horrible team run by terrible people.
Don't screw with the math wiz's salary cap.
I'm going to leave it at that.
Leave it at that.
Mike Szabo.
Yeah, that's my spiel, and I think you covered it for all of us, Joey.
Ian, who are you giving kudos to?
Well, let Joey lead it in, I guess. He just completely just hijacked this Eichel point.
I see.
Not even his Eichel point.
Joey, you broke it. There's no coming back.
I see DeLuca's completely done with tonight.
You just jumped all over Joey and made his back worse than Eichel's. I think that's what you did.
Yeah, like damn, like Joey just told us how he really felt. There's nothing more to say to it, and we're out of time. So
it aggravates me to see that yes, this team can do it. I am not in by any means saying that Vegas is a terrible team that I can't stand. I can't do this. I can't do that.
I can't
stand them. And that's fair, DeLuca. That is 100%, whatever you feel, no problem. The bottom line here is that for how they maneuvered it, phenomenal, great. But the bottom line here is that if this team does not win the Stanley Cup this year, if Jack Eichel can come back, if he, because you know what, this has Tampa Bay written all over it. If this team can come back and perform to what they can do, and if they can get Nolan Patrick up and running to be that center that they thought, or that Philadelphia thought years ago when he was the number 2 overall selection, this team has a legitimate shot. And on paper, this team is a dynasty. This team is a dynasty team. If Vegas cannot win this year or next year, completely sell everybody. That's exactly where we are going right now. Riley Smith and Matthias Janmark are 2 players that will be free agents at the end of this season. I think that's why I say that Tampa Bay, excuse me. That's pretty much where my head's at. Vegas will beat Tampa Bay, where Jack Eichel at the end of the season, and also let's keep in mind too, the season ends in late April this year. So you've got a few extra weeks to recover as well. And we will see. This operation that Eichel is going to be getting has never been done on a professional hockey athlete ever in the NHL. So we'll see if he ever comes back. There's not even a possibility or a guarantee that he does come back. Yep. If he does, then kudos to them. And that's the part where that clock for Kelly McCrimmon and the entire Vegas organization, with the players that they've got, their clock is ticking. I cannot wait to see what happens there. It's going to be absolutely wild. Now we will get into the kudos. Let's start off with Mike Szabo on the kudos.
Well, I think you all know where my kudos are coming.
Oh, I do. I know exactly.
That was a fantastic night last night with the St. John's women's soccer team pulling off a massive upset against the number 1 seeded Xavier Musketeers in the Big East tournament semifinals. This is a team who, came in number 4 seed in the Big East, kind of been up and down the last couple of, well, not even up and down, really been down the last couple of years, and really carried by the star power of Johnny Kajan. Come in this year and have a really good year, get 4th place in the Big East, able to get a big home win in overtime against Providence, a solid team in women's college soccer, ranked at number 35 in the RPI. And you go on the road to the number 1 Xavier Musketeers in the Big East tournament semifinals, a team who's won 16 out of their 18 games this season, a team that you lost 1-0 to on that same field about a month ago, and pull off a fantastic upset. And it was a masterclass of a game. You knew that they were going to have to sit in, absorb some pressure defensively, and hope that you would create one opportunity, whether it was for your other forwards or for your star striker, Johnny Kajan, who's 2nd in the nation in goals, that you could create that one opportunity, and that would be enough to win the game, and they did it just exactly that. I mean, you held your breath for a second when Xavier hit the crossbar in the final minute. I almost sent it to overtime, but man, how good it was to see them pull off that fantastic upset. And the St. John's women's soccer team will be headed to the Big East Championship game for the first time since 1994, and just the 2nd time in all of program history. Fantastic to them. They'll be taking on the Georgetown Hoyas on Sunday at 1:30 p.m. on FS1. It's going to be really interesting. Kudos to St. John's for getting this far, and cross your fingers. Hopefully, maybe bring the championship home on Sunday.
Yeah, kudos to the alma mater. Kudos to Ian Stone, one of the nicest people that I've ever met, and I know he's a really good guy. And also funny and a little fun fact there: Johnny Kajan, as a freshman, was in one of my classes as a senior in college. So I believe now, just correct me if I'm wrong, Mike, she's a graduate.
She's a graduate student. Yep,
she's a graduate student. So that just shows my age, ladies and gentlemen.
Yep,
Ian Schraier. Go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, last note, she's got, we all remember the name Rachel Daly, and Johnny Kajan, 45 career goals was clinched last night. Just 5 goals off of Rachel Daly's incredible mark. I mean, just fantastic stuff there from St. John's.
Oh, yeah, she'll be in the Hall of Fame one of these days if Mike Craig has anything to do with it. Ian Schraier.
So I've got 2 kudos. My first kudos actually goes to someone's jersey I once owned, actually, if we can get it.
Oh, there it is.
So the one year that I had my Ranger tickets was actually Marion Gabrick's first year with the Rangers, and bought his jersey and was worth every cent. But yeah, I mean, even though he was on the ice the night that the Rangers lost to the Kings in the Stanley Cup final in 2014, I haven't forgotten that. But he was just so much fun to watch as a Ranger. If he could have only stayed healthy, I could only imagine, that the sky really would have been the limit for him in New York. Had a lot of great success towards the end of his career in New York, especially with the run to the Eastern Conference Finals in 2012. I think, Rob, keep raising those eyebrows, buddy. But
what happened.
Yeah, I do. I don't
know what happened to you, buddy.
I don't have to accept it, but congratulations to Gabby on her retirement. I had a lot of fun also covering those teams when I was working for Sports Day at the time. Especially, I remember the year that they played the Flyers in the Winter Classic, and I believe I was at the next home game following the Winter Classic, and I was asking him because we would all watch the lead up episodes into I believe it was 24/7 at the time. And he was like carrying a Christmas tree across Manhattan or whatever it was. And I remember asking him a question about that, and he laughed at me. And I think that he was just a great person to be around, especially when I was in the locker room with him, and just selfishly as a favorite player of mine when during that time with the Rangers. My second set of kudos is this is Thank Your SID week for COSIDA, to really from November 3rd to the 9th to thank all the sports information professionals out there and across NCAA's Division 1, 2, 3, NAIA, JUCO, and so on and so forth. To say great job to all of you, a fantastic job. Keep it up, keep up the good work. We put in a lot of tireless hours, a lot of hard work. Just to make sure that we do the best we can for our universities, our schools, and our student athletes. So thank you, everybody, to all the SIDs out there. Thank you for all your hard work, and keep it up, everybody. Keep grinding.
So that's so now before we get to because DeLuca, it seems like a pretty good segue here. The way he does it is just phenomenal. We're gonna keep this train rolling. And he didn't even react. I love it. My kudos goes to Brady Tkachuk. He signed a deal towards the end of the preseason, and now all of a sudden he is named the 10th captain in Ottawa Senators history. So really kudos to him. And also, I guess my 1A kudos is to the Thank Your SID. And the reason why it is because I am a former SID, a sports information director. I know exactly the tireless hours that Ian puts in. It is grueling. I am no longer in the industry. Listen, they do phenomenal stuff, and we would not be where we are today without those. So Ian, thank you very much for everything that you do and for making our Adelphi broadcasts absolutely phenomenal. And I know Mike Zabo can definitely attest to that. Rob DeLuca, let's conclude us out, please.
Yeah, my kudos is simple. Joe, you mentioned Brady Tkachuk, named captain. Let's talk about another potential captain here that could be coming to the Big Apple, and that is New York Rangers defenseman Adam Fox, locking down a long-term, well-earned payday, 7 years, $9.5 million per year. And if the Rangers had waited if the Rangers waited till the offseason, he would have cost at least $10 million a year. So the Rangers are getting a great deal with him. This is a Norris Trophy winning defenseman that is only going to bring great things to the New York Rangers, as much as I'm going to hate to see that for the next 7 years, but it's truly, that's just how things are going to go. And you paid him if he is not named captain, and you don't stop these shenanigans of 6 alternate captains, Chris Drury's running some sort of kiddie organization over there then, where everybody gets a say, everybody gets a turn at being a captain. But no, that in reality, there's not a better choice than on the Rangers right now than Adam Fox for captain. So I would expect that changes real soon. And, and good for him to get his payday while he's still so young. And it's going to be good times forward for the New York Rangers, as much as that's unfortunate for us, Joey.
Not really. When you've got a hard salary cap, and when they have to pay Alexis Lafreniere, they'll be coming back to us and saying,
the way things are going right now, I don't think they're gonna have to pay him too much.
That is very true. That is very, very true. And also the same goes for Capo. Ladies and
Oh,
gentlemen,
yeah.
that is very true. And also they might not even have to pay Ryan Strome either. And
not at all. No, I don't think they're gonna pay
and maybe have a vacant second center line as well. But we will.
We don't have any centers outside of Chris Kreider, so I mean it's fine. I mean
exactly. And
Ian, how do you feel about Chris Kreider? Leading goal scorer.
We don't have enough time to get into.
We don't have enough time for that. That's for sure. But ladies and gentlemen, this past week, a very sad moment where minutes to bell times. Ryan Joy concluded his program. Episode number 179 was the final one. So definitely a round of applause to him for doing a phenomenal show, 10 a.m. Monday through Thursday, but we'll definitely be missing that time slot for him. But on Tuesday, we will continue on with the Essential Wrestling Podcast. Ryan.
Apologies for the technical difficulties. I believe Joey's mic had cut out there. Looks like he has a Wi-Fi issue as the graphic has gone on. So I'll conclude it. Tuesday, November 9th, 6 p.m. every Tuesday. You catch the Essential Wrestling Podcast. John DeConnie, John Smith, Al Carl, Ryan Joy, and sometimes Tyler Adele. I don't even know if he's technically a part of the show anymore. But nonetheless, that's where you can catch the Essentially Wrestling Podcast right here on the Eastern Observer. You can catch them on Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Google Play. You search them on YouTube and, of course, Spotify, the same places that you can also find us, the Primetime Rundown.
There we go. We're back up.
There
we go. So make sure the Essential Wrestling Podcast every Tuesday. Join those guys, as you said, 6 p.m. Eastern time right here on the Eastern Observer. The show is presented to you by ProWrestlingPick'em.com. Also, ladies and gentlemen, please be sure to subscribe to our show, The Primetime Rundown, by searching us on I-95 Sports Network, as well as Google Play, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and iHeartRadio. Also, please be sure to subscribe to the other guys as well by searching the Essential Wrestling Podcast on the following platforms. Ladies and gentlemen, one final time, I'm Joey Jarzynka alongside my guys Ian Schraier, Rob DeLuca, and Mike Zabo. For all of us here at the Essential, at the Eastern Observer and Blackjack Media Group, I'm Joey Jarzynka. We'll see you next time.